Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 501, San Diego Comic-Con 2017 Talkback. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot Segulin, the Duke of You-Know, and the elder statesman of the podcast. Also on this episode from the Facebook group, we're joined by Jeremy Eloi as we talk about all the news that spun out of the New York Comic-Con. Now, this is a very special episode. We're going to jump in pretty quickly. So I want to remind everyone that we are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. I do want to remind everyone that we are sponsored every episode by DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. DCBService.com is your comic book pre-order source. So whether you like comics, trades, hardcovers, statues, action figures, you name it, DCBService.com is your pre-order source with amazing discounts that change every single month. As Jim always mentions, they have bundles. So if you're trying out something new, the bundles are great ways to save 50% off or more a lot of times on your comics. So I want to thank DCBService.com for supporting our show, reminding everyone that they are a digital partner. Whether you use Comixology or My Digital Comics, make sure to stop over at DCBService.com, link those accounts, shop using their portal, and you'll earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order. Doesn't cost you anything more, but earns you a little something from doing your digital shopping right through their portal. Also, a reminder that InStockTrades.com is your trade paperback and hardcover source. Make sure to stop over to their site. If you've been missing something, go pop over to InStockTrades.com and check it out. So thank you, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for supporting our show. There's really no need for a spoiler warning on this episode. We're just going to be talking San Diego Comic-Con news. So without further ado, let's jump right into the show.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Finally joining us is longtime friend of the show, Jeremy Eloi. And Jeremy, it's good to find... You and I have been putting this together for literally months, trying to find the right chance to have you on the show. You've been It's calling you a friend of the show almost doesn't seem to be enough, because you're our moderator over at the Facebook group. And I even use that title loosely because I've said it on the show many times. The Facebook group has kind of become the inmates running the asylum, and you've been the ringleader of that. Where we've got, really, it's its own thing. And I mean that as a compliment to you and to all of the great people that are over there. It really is listed as the Raging Bullets Facebook group, but it's not ours. It's the community that's theirs. I visit it, and I'm proud to visit it, and I'm proud that on some level it's attached to our show as far as in name. But it really is all of you that are there that have made it such a great place to hang out and visit. And really, it's where I get my comic news first now because of all of you. So it is so much for me. I feel like we are attached to it versus it being attached to us. And I love that it's organically grown into that. So I want to, first of all, welcome you to the show. But also, I want to thank you for all of your work, and you and everybody else who's in the Facebook group for all that you do, because it's one of my favorite destinations on the internet, and it's really you guys. Got nothing to do with us at all.
Well, thank you for having me on, and frankly, thank you for putting on the podcast, because without the podcast, the group wouldn't exist. So I want to thank you for that. And I'd like to use myself as the administrative moderator for the group loosely, too, because the folks over there have been so great that all I do is basically talk with everybody. And if people want to join, I add them to the group. But everybody's over there so friendly and nice and get along so well. I really do no work. It's very much a collaborative effort.
And that's what I love about it, and I love the way that you put that. And it's one of the reasons why I so felt like as we were getting towards 500 episodes, I wanted to have you on, because I grew up with comics being like this isolated hobby of mine. I was a nerdy kid growing up. I read comics, and yeah, I had friends of mine who read comics too, but quite frankly, nobody was quite as geeky as I was. So it was kind of an isolated thing. You didn't really have like this outlet now where you could just be comfortable being yourself and enjoying these this hobby on such a level that we do now. I mean, comics now are available on TV shows, films, video games, comics themselves. It's such a larger cartoons. It's such a larger cultural experience now. Cons are now a thing that it's cool to go to for everybody. You know, it isn't like this thing that you dream of being able to attend because there's so many of them now that we can do that. So the social interactions are a great piece. And Facebook and forum communities, because we spun out of the Comic Geek Speak forum community originally. After they had to pare back, we started the Facebook group. And that was really where, to your point, Jeremy, you and everybody else who's there just kind of took over and made it their home. And I prefer that so much more than it being something that Jim and I forced and put walls upon. So I'm glad that thematically it spun out of the podcast and our need to have like a talkback section. I love that it grew into something so much more than that. There are people who go there, hang out and chat that I know don't listen to the show. Or if they do, they listen very sporadically. I'm fine with that. I actually love that the community is something so much larger, and it's the inmates running the asylum. And I love that. To me, that's far more fun than if it's something that Jim and I did, and it like is only about the podcast. So it really is the quality of the people that are there. You are a great example of that. And so many other people that are there. It's a fun place to hang out.
Yeah, I agree. And I was thinking about this a couple of days ago to where I was thinking about how long I've been part of the forum, how long I've been talking to everybody at the forum. It's been like 6 years. It's definitely been fun over the long haul.
Yeah, and that's one of the nice things for me is seeing so many regulars, you know, people who come in regularly. But even then, the casual audience. I think there's a casual audience of people who just pop by when they feel like it, and that's fun too. I think it's a place where it's safe. You very rarely, over the years, 6 years, let's use that as as a baseline, right? Over the 6 years, there have been maybe a handful of what I would consider feisty conversations. And what I mean by that is where it was getting questionable. I'm not talking about debates. Debates are fine. That's what's half the fun of it, right? Having a, real geeky debate about something that we all love. But I mean, where people were getting personal or something like that. Mm-hmm. When you consider the number of people that visit that community, I think it says something about the quality of people there that people usually meter themselves. They realize, hey, this conversation's getting a little out of control. Let's pull ourselves back and handle that. And I like that about the group. It says a lot about the maturity of the people there. We're all passionate about the things we're talking about, but very few conversations have gotten super feisty. I've been in a conversation or two there where I'll admit I was getting a little feisty. And but that's the nature of what we do, right? And then every so often you pull back and you wind up in the same spot. And I think what's great about it is it's a safe haven for that. We all realize at the end that we like each other, we like the same stuff, and that's what we're there for. And it says something about really the quality of the people. That's the only way I can put it. There's just a quality group of people that tend to pop by that spot. I consider myself fortunate to, forget our name being attached to it, that there's a spot where I can go to talk to those people. It's yourself included. So it's fun.
Thank you. And even before we start, I really want to say it's really, and like you said, it's a testimony to everybody there and how everybody gets along. And now I've noticed that there have been more and more people like requesting to join the group. And as those people come in, it's just great to see the old regulars being welcoming, helping out those new regulars, and then those new regulars not just staying on the sideline, but actually delving into conversations.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It really is. I just love seeing the growth. I don't know. It's. I think it says a lot about today's comic book community, because I do think the group that's there is more representative of the larger comic book community nowadays. Because when I go to cons, I generally find that the people there all come from different backgrounds, all different age ranges, all different areas of the world, really. And yet when we all get together at these cons nowadays, everyone's pretty cool with each other. And I think that's kind of the nice thing, where we're all like-minded people who really just love this medium and everything that is attached to it, and really embrace whatever everybody's geeky hobbies are that they're there for, because we all have different variations on what we collect and what we're interested in, and it's all a hybrid of something that spins out of this culture that's been around for many, many, many years, and it's just cool. I'm thrilled to be able to take some time to spotlight it at the beginning of this episode, but then to delve into really what we all know and love, conventions in and of themselves, and the great news coming out of San Diego, because I was geeking out over the news this weekend, not expecting as much as we were going to get.
Yeah, there's a lot, but also I contend there's also a little, but we'll get into that.
Well, go ahead, Jim.
Well, I was going to say with San Diego itself, because I've never been there, but I've seen and read enough about it to just see how massively large it is. Because I've been to New York Comic Con, obviously, and I would picture San Diego as being, if nothing else, physically larger than New York. And that was something that always amazed me, and how you can get through to the different forms, you can get through the different stuff, and just how much you're able to see how much you're going to miss. Any advice to those who are thinking about doing San Diego next year?
Jim, he wasn't at San Diego.
No.
Oh, you weren't?
No, I told you this.
All online.
You did this all online? Oh, crud.
Yeah.
I told you this.
It's good
Obviously, I did not hear that.
Yeah. It's good having the summers off, so I could just sit in front of my computer and watch all the goodness.
I honestly thought you were there. Oh,
No,
crap.
funny enough, I've never actually been to a convention.
Really?
No, not one.
Do you have an interest in going? I mean, is that where
I would love to go to a convention, but just where I am with work and stuff like that, I just haven't had the money or being able to. I would love to go to one.
We used to go to the New York Comic Con every year, and C2E2 actually for a number of years where we did that. And we did Wizard World Chicago, right, Jim, a few years together?
Yeah, a couple times.
And I found, similar to your point, my past few years, my schedule's just been such that I've been able to go. We've been fortunate that Cleveland's had a Wizard convention, and Columbus, Ohio's had one. I haven't been able to go to all of those either. If I've gone, it's been like a day where I've been able to hit the con, maybe. But time is an issue with those. But I love it. I mean, it's so. Where are you, Jeremy? Where are you at? Where do you have a con in your state?
No, actually. As a proud member of the state of West Virginia, we have no conventions. So the closest one would be either Pittsburgh or Cleveland or Columbus.
Okay, so that makes it hard when you don't have one in your state, because we used to, before I was going to the Columbus one, and then there was a Pittsburgh one, and both of those are a trek for me. But that was before Cleveland had one. In the last few years, Cleveland had a Wizard Con. I don't know if they're going to do another one this year or not, because I know Wizards paring back some of their conventions. But we've been lucky the past couple years to at least have one locally. Mm-hmm. But even, let's go on. This is not a knock on the Wizard conventions, but the truth of them, they aren't like a true Comic-Con, right? Where growing up, the Comic-Cons were where comics were the predominant focus. And there's some of those around the nation. Those are becoming few and far between. A true comic convention, one where it's very comic focused. Because San Diego's, it's a monster. There's a heavy comic focus, sure, but it's a full multimedia convention where so much of it is dominated by not just comic news, but also TV and video games and everything that are related to and film, the geek culture. So that's really been more the thing. New York Comic Con grew into that very quickly as well. It became the East Coast San Diego. So it's interesting nowadays that what a true comic convention is a lot harder to find nowadays than it was when we were younger. And it's an interesting, there's more cons about, but there's so many more of them are now these multimedia comic convention, or more multimedia conventions, I should say. You can't even put the comic word on them. It's multimedia convention.
Yeah. I feel like just going off of what news comes out of certain conventions, like Emerald City in New York, still have you definitely get more of a common focus, because I feel like with DC and Marvel, a lot of big book announcements come from those two, and San Diego is definitely TV and movies.
I've heard Heroes Con, which is one I want to hit, and the Baltimore Comic Con, I know are two other ones that are heavy hitters, I think, in the comic industry still. So those are ones that I wanted to hit. And honestly, anybody out there, if you have conventions, I would actually love that. Feel free to call in if you are at a con. And it doesn't have to be just in the U.S. All over the world. I'd love to know what's out there, what cons are out there, what are you enjoying, and what are you digging about them. So don't hesitate to call in the show with a voicemail message just saying, or post into the Facebook group, conventions you're digging, and what it is about them that's a draw. Because to Jeremy's point, like I don't mind traveling to a convention. I actually quite like it. But a lot of times you want to know, like, you're judicious on your time. And if you're going to go somewhere, you want to be able to go to a convention that you know is going to hit the type of thing that you're looking for at that moment. You know, so if you're looking for something comic heavy, you want to make sure you're hitting one of those cons, which is an interesting, I think an interesting problem nowadays is trying to find ones that really are more comic focused.
Yeah. Because even, like, I looked into possibly going to Pittsburgh Comic Con, I think it was last year, and it was still focused on, like, actors and actresses from, like, 80s and 90s TV shows more than actual comic creators. The comic creators were all from the Pittsburgh area instead of the comic book community at large. So it definitely is that finding which convention is kind of right for you.
So, talking about conventions, let's shift over to San Diego and some of the news coming out of there. Now, what I want to tell people is, Jeremy, first of all, thank you. You compiled this great list of bullet points of news that was at the convention, and we'll talk organically along the way, like you said, about how much news there actually was and things like that, and what we felt about each of the points as we get to them. But besides that, there's also some rumors that are out there, and we're going to try to highlight that they are rumors, or they're things where they gave us little teases to things maybe and we don't know, so we'll probably do some speculation along the way based on those pieces, and we'll try to highlight those. I actually want to start with a discussion point because it was something I read today, and it was a panel that Jim Lee and Dan DiDio were on, and they were talking about the state of the comic industry in general, the entry point into comics, which seems to be this topic that comes up periodically about that it's hard to get into comics nowadays, and that a lot of times people's introduction to these characters, there's pieces that I agree with what they say, and there's pieces that I don't, and I want to talk a little bit about this. So one of the points that they made was that the entry point into comics nowadays is through other media, a lot of times more than comics. I totally agree with that. The one piece they were talking about is how hard it is nowadays that you've got to go to like Wikipedia or places like that to find out information about the characters. I actually would say that nowadays we have a huge advantage by the fact that we can go to Wikipedia and all those places to learn more about the history of characters. I don't think comics, and maybe it's my own mentality. I remember growing up when I jumped onto comics, you jumped in mid-storyline. Because that was just the way it was. You couldn't go back and get everything. So you jumped in mid-storyline. After a couple issues, you became acclimated, you knew what was going on, and you moved forward. Nowadays, we're in a different place, I think, with a completionist society. You know, we're used to watching television, right? You binge watch. I was watching on Netflix the other day. Actually, Hulu I went back and started watching Alfred Hitchcock Presents. I was watching it from the beginning. Well, you know, when I was a kid, I watched that show in broken pieces, and I never saw all the episodes. So we're in a society right now where our television's on demand, right? Stranger Things, shows like that have become very successful. Game of Thrones, a lot of the shows we talk about are on a lot of your pay services that either are on television or are streaming that you have instantaneous access to. Our comics, you have that now too, but I think where is the jumping on point for a new reader? Where do they start to start enjoying comics today? I think it's part of the point they were trying to make, but they were talking about this new format that they were trying to do, and they were talking about it being a prestige format that, you know, would showcase the art, which I guess I took to mean that it might be a little bit larger than the format that we're used to nowadays. But also, instead of it being monthly, it had a greater page count with a bigger story. What do you guys think about a format like that? And keep in mind, I think we're saying this loosely, and please, either of you, if you've heard more about what I'm talking about here than I have, feel free to jump in and expand upon what I'm saying. But I think one of the things that I get worried about with comics, a lot of times when I hear comics being talked about with regards to new readers, we keep talking about how hard it is for people to get into comics. And I still go back to the thing. the biggest problem with comics nowadays is getting the comic into somebody's hands. I don't think that it's that hard to get into comics. I think we make this impression, and I'm talking about us as comic fans. I'm a guilty party on this, because we talk on the show a lot of times about whether or not a story arc is a good jumping on point. But I think, here's the reality. I think talking to people, getting to know what things that they're interested in, and handing them a comic that falls in the realm of their interest is a great jumping on point into comics. Far more than worrying about that this is such a hard medium to get into, because it's really not. I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist, and I jump onto books all the time midway through story arcs because I heard it's a good book. And I can pick up pretty easily what's going on. And I would argue that the average person you hand a book to, and that's where I think we need to be ambassadors for the industry. I like their idea of making these books that are accessible to new readers, so I'm not poo-pooing the idea. I think the problem is what I would be more excited to hear from this, and maybe this is in the plan, and I hope it is. So I'm saying this optimistically. I'm hoping whatever this new format that they're experimenting with, there's an outreach to new readers. Because if it just is marketed to us, it's not going to get in the hands of new readers. If there's an outreach to a new community from it, if they create it for us, it's a mistake. I'm going to read it anyway because I'm going to know it's there because I'm a comic fan. You don't need to chase me down. I'm chasing you down for content. What I need them to do is, and what I would like to see them do is, I want to see some innovation in chasing down new readers. And maybe it is with a new format. But how do you get that new format noticed by a new audience? I didn't hear that out of the discussion, and I'd love to see that. I feel like that's the next logical conversation point on this, instead of saying how hard it is to get into comics. Because I don't think that's the issue. The issue is getting the comics into the hands of people, not so much that it's such a hard medium to get in. But what do you guys feel about this topic? Like the entry point into comics, DC exploring a new format. What do you guys think about all that?
With the new format, because I remember whenever they canceled Scott Snyder's All-Star Batman, it wasn't really canceled. It was going to be moving into this new format, if I remember correctly. So I'm wondering, like, it's always good to where we have new things, innovation, trying to bring more readers in. But my worry for this is kind of like, I feel like it's the Earth 1 graphic novel syndrome, where it's all great, but really comes out sporadically. So I'm hoping that with this new format, there is a schedule that they stick by.
And does it matter, Jeremy, in your point, is there a schedule to stick by? Is it that you want this format on a schedule, or that you want the same creative team or the same creators or the same storylines on a schedule? Like, how do you envision that? Because I think you're making an interesting point there, and I think there's a lot of ways to look at that. So is it a branding of this format that you want on a schedule? Or is it, because the Earth 1's a great example of that, they come out sporadically. So you don't even know really when you're going to pick up a new Earth 1 graphic novel. I love them. I think they're great. Tell me what you mean.
It kind of goes back to, I was reading something like the Aquaman and Flash Earth 1 that got announced, but who knows if they're ever going to come out. So it's like, I really like the idea of the Earth 1, and I'm all for like the graphic novels, but not knowing when things come out. It's like, it's going to come out the beginning of 2018, 2019. I think that'll put a lot of people off, because there's not, this is the day to where like a new Batman comes out or a new Flash. It's like, so people have some sort of schedule that they're used to picking stuff up. So if you're a new reader, you can follow along with the story and not, you pick up one thing and then 6 months from now you totally forget about the next story.
It almost sounds like they need some form of, because it really is a different audience you're trying to reach out to with this. Like, we'll find out from previews, right? We'll know when this stuff's coming because of that. It is frustrating for us as comic fans because we're used to a traditional set schedule of releases, to have them not on the schedule, but it almost sounds like if you're doing this new format, you almost need to brand it differently, not necessarily separating it from us. You can get us in the usual channels that we find out information, but you really want to maybe have a website that's separate for it, maybe some sort of app, maybe even, the company does some form of podcast or something like that with a regular release with news about it or something. There's all kinds of different ways of reaching out because DC has that all access app and things like that. But I don't think you want to just go by that channel. You want to be reaching out and doing some form of advertising to different groups in some way. And when I say advertising, I'm going to put quotes around that. I think it's really easy nowadays to do free advertising, where maybe you pay a marketing person, but they're popping into a lot of the free places and dropping hints that like, hey, this thing's coming out or that thing's coming out with a link back to DCComics.com and this section devoted to the new format. People need to know, to your point, Jeremy, when are these things coming out? You just said something that's interesting. The Flash is the JMS one. I think Straczynski is going to be doing that one, I believe. We don't know the release dates of those things. So to have that even on a site where we could go right now and go, okay, they're still planning to do this. It's to be decided on the date. But at least I know if I keep periodically checking back in this bullet point on the web, this section on the web, I know that Earth 1 line, for an example, these are the potential release dates of those. So I'd love an Earth 1 section on their website devoted specifically to that graphic novel line because it is a successful line for them. Where I would know which ones are still on the slate. And even, it's not going to upset me. Let me know if something's canceled. If, and I'm not saying Aquaman's canceled. I'm just using this as an example. If the Aquaman one was canceled, underneath it says canceled. Okay, I as a fan know, all right, the Flash one's still coming. The Aquaman one's canceled. I at least know where they're at right now. That's fine. With maybe a paragraph on there saying, due to, creative changes, give me a little heads up as far as what's going on with the status of that book. Create a fan community and outreach that shows you care about that audience, because there is an audience that's reading the Earth 1 graphic novels, I'm pretty convinced, that aren't just your traditional comic fans, because they're getting an interesting success rate with that. I think it could be more. And I think this new line has the potential to be something more if you try to find clever ways to reach out to a new audience. And that's really what I want to see from all of this. I get excited for this, and it's funny, it's such a random... We even talked about it before even discussing this. Like, should we go into this? Because there wasn't a lot of info given about this. But I think what I really want to talk about the larger, more interesting topic right now of... If you're going to do a new format, I'm excited for it. I think it's great, especially if it's something that's art-focused. So I want it to be successful. So if any of this sounds negative, it's not the case. And I think we're all want that. We want this, you mentioned innovation before, Jeremy, and I couldn't agree with you more. We want this innovative new thing to be kick butt. We want to be blown away by it. I also want it to be something that where I go, I am surprised at the people that are reading this. That's what I want. I'm salivating for that next thing that makes it cool to be reading comics again. For an audience that never touched it before or is so lapsed that they've really been out of, the loop and they never thought they'd be stepping back in. Because I want this hobby around. So I'm glad for the innovation. I think the idea is cool. I'm glad they're thinking out of the box. Like, let's try something different. My question for them is, and what I want to see out of this moving forward as this story unfolds, is some fleshing out of what exactly this is and what they're going to do to reach a new audience. Because that's what I really want. How do you get new people who've seen the movies, who've played the video games, who watch the television, to get into the world that really started all this? What are they doing to reach out for that? Because it's not a... When you look at how successful all those things are, it's not a one-to-one. We're not even getting a quarter of those people jumping back into the comic medium. So I would love to see an outreach where, eventually we get to the point where we can say, hey, a quarter of the people that go to the films are actually reading these books or some variation of them. So that's what I'd like to see from that. It was an interesting news tidbit because you're right, there wasn't much to it. But yet it did make me start to think, I'm glad they're talking about this. I just hope that they've got a plan for that piece, and I want it to be successful. So I'm rooting them on. I'm glad they're talking about it.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Well, I worry, though, how many titles they're going to do. Are they going to oversaturate it and stuff like that? Because on one hand, I'm completely agreeing with you that, the new. I like when they try new things. Let's see what happens, and I'm not going to say no to something until I've actually physically had it in my hand and read it. But the first thing I always worry about whenever they try something new is, are they doing too much of it new? Are they going to try to take every single title and make it in the new format? Are they only going to do certain characters? Are they going to create brand new titles for this? So now they've increased the number of books that are out there, or are they going to cancel this book and turn it over to that? That's the kind of stuff that I have the questions on.
They did announce this as an experimental format, so they're only going to have a small group working on this right now, putting some interesting experimental projects into this format. So no, they aren't doing their entire line this way. Obviously, if it's successful, would we potentially see that in the future? Maybe. But we're certainly not at that place right now. This is an experimental format. Here's the problem. I agree with you about the oversaturation piece if they're only targeting us. To me, if you're doing a new format and you're really going with the intention of hitting new people, it's what are you doing? I would love the problem to be, Jim, that we have this discussion of there's too many titles for DC that DC has out there that are successful for us to read. But my gosh, business is thriving. And I don't just say that for DC, I talk about comics in general, because what that means is you have a new casual audience, a new casual audience that maybe becomes diehard for this format. Kind of like the Vertigo crowd years ago. There was a time when, Vertigo in the bookstores was a runaway hit, where there were people that were just collecting trades and were just going to bookstores to read Vertigo, and they read Vertigo only. So I would love to see comics come up with that new thing again, that maybe is a crowd that they aren't just like us. They're a new crowd, that they're able to expand their lines, do something new creative that keeps the comic industry lucrative, keeps it bringing in a new audience, and some of those people become hybrid fans, where they read that format and they read what we're reading. And it becomes a point on that. Now, this is my dream for it. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but I would love to see that, and I think that's their intention, because if you hear what they're saying, and it's very little of what they're saying, Jim Lee is one of the names that are creating on this format. So they referenced him and Sean Murphy and a project they were working on, how instead of doing it as a monthly release, they would do it as this prestige style format release, collecting it instead. And that would be the output for this particular one. I think you're smart when you take top tier talent and say we're going to put them on that, because what'll happen is we as comic fans, because of the names, are going to gravitate towards it. You got us hooked. My question is, you're doing this as a new format to try and make it accessible. How are you getting that new audience to read it? That's the piece I want to see. If they can bottle that, this will be something in a decade. Do you remember when we were discussing that and how genius it was? I want that. I don't know that that's going to be the case. And I think we could, at the same time as we root for it, we could probably poke holes in it. But I think at the end of the day, it's what we all want, right? We want that magic elixir. We want that thing where they finally found the thing that's going to hook in a brand new casual crowd, because we're clearly not the casual crowd. There's something wrong with us. In a good way, right? I mean, that's why we all connect, because we're the nutty people they've got us hooked already. We're already salivating at this stuff. It's that crowd that hasn't touched this either ever or in a long time that I'd really want to see reading this stuff. If they do just target us, Jim, you're right, you're going to get an oversaturation. I'm hoping that this has a plan, and I want to see what it is.
Yeah, and kind of like for my final point on this, I agree. There's 2 points that you brought up, or 1 point that you brought up, Jim, where it's like, I wonder if there's a thought that would canceling, take Blue Beetle, for example, something that's on the verge of maybe being canceled, moving it to this new prestige format to where people read in trades, and then slowly instead of having monthly comics, you have this prestige format to where it's kind of like the manga effect, to where, no, you're not going to get something like Batman every 2 weeks, but every other month. But you're going to get a overly large issue. Like you're going to get something that's like 100 pages. In that, a good way like to outreach. I'm still waiting for the day like with all these comic book movies coming out. Why don't they? Okay, here's this new prestige format. Put it before Justice League. Put it before Wonder Woman or some movie. Say, hey, if you like this movie, you can go such a place and read this.
Yeah. I mean, that's the stuff. I think part of the problem is I don't think it's enough to throw that little teaser on there saying go and read this. There's got to be some kind of ease of reading the first few pages or somehow being accessible to it. And I'm curious to see what that is. And here's the funny part. Anything I could suggest here is going to be the wrong approach. and the reason why is because I'm thinking like a comic fan. It's innovation. I think the word you mentioned before, Jeremy, when you were saying innovation is really the key there. It's that different thing that is trying something outside of the box. The format idea has me excited, but if it's only creating the format, it's not going to work. If it's some form of unique outreach, that may stand a shot. And I'd love to see that work, whether it's using, like you said, Jeremy, current titles that maybe aren't doing so well, but have critical acclaim. Because there's a lot of titles that get canceled that have critical acclaim because of the quality of what they're doing. I would like to see also, though, and it sounds like if Jim Lee and Sean Murphy are working on one of them, obviously it's a new project of some sort. I'd love to see new projects created specifically for the format, are geared towards targeting a new crowd and bringing them in. And I just want it. I want it to be. I'm rooting for it. I want it to be successful, and I'm going to be curious to see where this goes. It's an interesting way to start because there isn't much to this news.
No.
And I agreed with your point as far as should we even talk about this? I was more talking about the state of the industry in general. And my worry about the industry is I think where, Jim, you're concerned about oversaturation comes from. I think we shift around in comics the same readers instead of, so when, DC does its Rebirth initiative, it brings a whole bunch of people back to DC Comics that were lapsed readers that went elsewhere. They were still probably reading comics, but they went and read other things. Or maybe we're reading less DC Comics. So we're shifted around still the same audience. And Rebirth's a great example of a high-quality initiative that I think had the potential, and still does, to reach a new audience. The trick is marketing comics right now to a new crowd. The competition is intense now. I mentioned Netflix before. Video games, it's very easy for me to fill my time. I got too much stuff going on. My stockpile isn't limited to comics. It's TV shows, it's movies, it's video games. I've got the same stack in all of those hobbies that I do with this, novels. So it's very easy for me to fill up my time. I think the problem is because of all that competition, that's comics' biggest barrier right now. It's the competition that it has with other media at finding an entry point to get people to try this new product. I'm very curious to see where this goes, and I can't wait for more news on it because I'm hoping there's some substance to this. Because the idea in and of itself was an interesting tease, but I want that fleshed out. What are they really going to do with this? And do they have a plan for it? So, I don't know. It was an interesting... it's not really a rumor, but it isn't a piece of news with a lot of substance, but it is something I'm passionate about, which is why I wanted to start with that. So, seeing as I kind of got us on this mindset, why don't we jump into some of the real rumors and news coming out of San Diego that was outside of this? What were some of the things that were going on? Because there's some bits in there that I'm salivating about. Jeremy, you've been collecting the news and compiling it. And one of the things at the start of the show we talked about was the amount of news. There's, I think, I found a lot of substance to the news that was out there, but you kind of alluded to a problem. Well, I don't know if it's a problem so much, but something that was a little unique about the news this time around. So maybe you want to kick us off with your feelings on the news in general and start us off in some of the bits?
Yeah, I found like everything that came out for DC and Vertigo and Wildstorm and all that I found really cool and really interesting. But I just found like there's a lot of, okay, we're looking at the Dark Matter line, which I'm really excited about, and possible reboot of the Vertigo line and all this other tertiary stuff. But I just found that there's very little for the main DC line. However, the first kind of rumor that Bleeding Cool had put out actually deals with the main line. So how about we just start there for the news?
Go for it.
Again, this is a rumor coming from Bleeding Cool. The Teen Titans book, and there's two Titans books out. You have Teen Titans and you have the regular Titan books with two different teams. The rumor is that they're going to kind of meld together and maybe become a once or twice weekly book. And it's just going to be one Teen Titans or Titans book, so it's not muddling the brand, but more the ages.
Got it. So I guess, are they not doing well? Is that, I mean, I guess I guess I'm wondering where this would come from. Go ahead.
I think both are actually doing quite well with sales. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know they're not exactly in cancellation territory.
So I guess I'm wondering where this would come. I don't dislike the idea. To me, I guess as comic fans, what do we want? We want it to be story-driven. So if there's a good story-driven reason for them to do this, I'm fine with it. I'm liking the twice-a-month delivery of a lot of the titles. So if they're looking to do this as a twice-a-month book or even a once-a-month book where it's really just a solid title, I'm fine with it. The problem is I'm enjoying both of the books right now with the team lineup that they have. So I don't want to say I'm excited for it. I'm not against it. It's just that I'm digging right now what they're putting out. So I don't know that I'm like looking for them to merge those teams yet. But I could see where if they weren't doing well, that might be a way to. I guess I don't find them that confusing. One is the older group, one is the younger group.
Yeah, and I also find this strange because I feel out of all the time I've been reading DC Comics, they're actually, in my opinion, doing better with the younger age comics than they've really have done in the past. With Titans, Teen Titans, Gotham Academy, and then people are wanting that a Young Justice book, and then with bringing in John, which has been a hit, Emiko Queen and Green Arrow, they actually have quite a big stable of young up-and-coming heroes. So limiting their pool of young books, I don't know, it's weird to me, but
Super Sons is phenomenal. So, just adding to that list. So I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I think their younger crowd is really good, and I actually like their separation from the Titans, I should say, which tend to be they seem to be that middle tier in between the two. And I'm sorry, Jim, you were going to say something?
See, my first reaction on this was Titans together. And I was actually very pleased to see a merger between the two. But for me, it would have to be twice a month kind of book. And I'm thinking, you do Teen Titans on one, on the one issue, and then Titans on the other with an occasional crossover or bump between the two of them. And kind of like I'm thinking like how they did with the Wonder Woman story where the past and then the present, past and present. I really loved that format, and I could see something really solid.
But that's not what they're saying
with the Teen Titans and Titans.
That's not what they're saying though, because they're saying that'll muddy the ages, which means that they would bring them together. So it would actually be a merger of the teams. Because if they're saying they're going to muddy the ages, what you said, I like, because it's basically the same thing we've got. Just they're calling it the same title. So I don't have a problem with what you were saying. I don't necessarily have a problem with this, but when they're saying muddying the ages, they're talking about a merger. So your idea, and please don't get me as I'm like shooting down your idea. I'm like, yeah, sure, cool. Okay, so they're just going to take the two books and make them one and do the divided story like they're doing with Wonder Woman. Cool. that's not what they're saying they're going to do. And remember, this is, to Jeremy's point,
a rumor.
This is a bleeding cool rumor. So maybe it is what you're saying, Jim, or maybe it's not going to happen at all. It's an interesting type of thing. Jeremy, where are you at on that? Is that something you want to see, or where are you at on this?
I would rather them keep the Titans in Teen Titans book. I mean, modeling the ages, I personally feel like the Teen Titans, some of the characters on the Teen Titans book should be actually aged up a bit. So I'm kind of the reverse. But I don't know. I kind of like where it's at currently, that they are a unique opportunity to add more than take away.
Emiko Queen you mentioned, and she's going to be a guest star. I know in an upcoming Teen Titans storyline. I was reading in previews, and I don't know the nature of it, if she's going to become a member of the team, or if, Green Arrow was a famous one for appearing in Justice League books and then, being done at the end of the storyline where they didn't really want him on the team. So I don't know where that storyline is going to go, but we have a nice young crowd of characters in the DC universe right now. John, you mentioned as being a runaway hit. I love that character. So more exploration on some of these sidekicks, that's really the nature of what the Teen Titans were, while at the same time acknowledging this other crowd. Jim, I liked your idea. I think it's very cool. I'm curious to see where this goes. I just want it story. I really want it story driven, whatever they decide to do, in a way that doesn't ignore what's been so cool about the books right now.
Yeah, and let me clarify just to make sure we're all aware that, I don't want any changing of ages. I don't want any, youngifying or aging or whatever you want to call it of the different characters. I like having the young team and the older team, and I want to see the two teams working together. You talk about, with Queen's, sister on the team, her and Damian, I want to see those two interacting, because I think that will be just an absolutely wonderful mix. But also, I'd like to see, Dick Grayson, kind of either trying to act as a calming agent for Damian, which he really can't do, or even just one of, Roy, Arsenal, dealing with Ollie's sister. I think that those would be some really cool older, younger, or same younger ages that you get into this. And of course, John is just I want to see him. I could see him interacting with either team just because who he is. He's Superman's son. That's, that I think would be another interesting factor of seeing people deal with him because of the big red S on his chest.
So what else we got on some of the rumors?
This is another bleeding cool rumor. And then from here on out, actually the rest of the news has been news straight from creators or San Diego Comic-Con. So this is the last of the rumor news. And this kind of can get us started maybe into the Dark Matter line that they kind of fully fleshed out in San Diego. But according to Bleeding Cool, the artists for the Dark Matter books are only signed for 3 issues. Now, that's not meaning that they couldn't sign on for more after their 3 issues are up, but they're on 3 issues, and then it seems like who knows from there, according to the rumor.
I think it's a state of where comics are at nowadays. When you start new books, there's a risk factor, and I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's you've got an audience base that you're trying to shuffle around that are your current comic fans. We all only have, I'd like to think that my pockets go deeper than they do, but I'm excited for the Dark Matter line. I think the lineup of the books, and we're going to talk about them I know you've got a point to talk about those specific books. I'm excited for the line. I want them to, because I think the creators that they've got on them are top notch. I want them to be successful. I would love to see, again, you're spinning out of a story like Batman Metal. I would love to see this Metal storyline somehow connect to a new audience, bring in new people who will possibly start reading some of these titles, because I'm excited for the lineup of them. 3 issues says a lot nowadays, if it's true. Remember, this is another Bleeding Cool rumor. We do need to put that caveat on there. This is a rumor. 3 issues says a lot about the fact that they're kind of playing a wait-and-see attitude on these to see what kind of readership they get. That's the pre-order numbers, right?
Yeah, normally with 3.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're going to know if people are continuing to order within those 3 months, whether or not the book has some legs to it, instead of just ordering the initial issue. Wow. I'm hoping I don't know if that's not really even an arc usually.
Yeah. Unless, hey, if they're trying new stuff, maybe they're going to try like maybe shorter arcs. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm actually hoping this isn't true.
I am
that
too.
This is just a rumor, just because, for me to say 3 issues, that's saying there's not going to, even if the book only goes 1 arc, or if it doesn't get a long run, if you give them enough to tell a full story, that's one thing where okay, beginning, middle, end, okay, we tried it, we moved on. But if there's only a 3-issue commitment, then I'm worried about what type of long-term plans do the creators have even. If you're telling somebody, hey, after 3 issues, we're going to decide, are they really thinking a year or 2 years? And those are the kind of stories that I love, where you can tell the creators were thinking, this is a 12-issue arc. I'm doing 12 issues. I'm doing 24. I'm doing 100 issues, where they're thinking multiple year run. If you tell someone you got 3 issues, you're not thinking that long.
I wonder.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No.
I wonder if the idea is, when you put out a line like this, some of them are going to be successful and some of them may not be. When we get to the news about it that Jeremy has... Actually, Jeremy, can we just jump to that? I know we'll jump and go back. I think that was point number 8 on yours. Why don't you talk about the line and the creators that are on it? I think we'll see that these are people they're not going to let go. So I guess my feeling is these are people, a number of them, are people that they have a backup plan where they would potentially shift them if the books don't look like after 3 issues or so they have legs to them. So, Jeremy, why don't you go ahead and tell us the real news that's coming out about the Dark Matter line? Then we'll jump back. I know I'm kind of jumping us around a little bit, but I think, to your point, I think we're already there, so let's talk about this.
Yeah, so we got more news about the Dark Matter line, and we got a cool new poster for the Dark Matter line, where it showed like what books we're going to get. Books like The Silencer, Sideways, Immortal Men, Damage, New Challengers. But they also added 2 new books to the line. We're going to get a book by Justin Jordan and Philip Tan called Brimstone, and another book from Ivan Reis, from Jeff Lemire, in art with Ivan Reis and Doug Shaner, called The Terrifics, which is going to have Phantom Girl, Metamorpho, Mr. Terrific, and Plastic Man on a team.
I mean, I'm Jeff Lemire writing a book, and with Ivan Reis on the art.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer for me. And then Justin Jordan and Philip Tan on a book. All right. Yay. So from that lineup of creators, and we can go through, there's a lineup on the other books as well, but, when you start taking a look, they're putting top-tier creators on these books. So I think what it is the 3-issue commitment is, if this book's not selling, let's move these top-tier creators to a book that is, or, to a concept that is, or to something new outside of that. If that's the case, I honestly, those are 2 titles on paper. I don't know who Brimstone is yet, but you put those 2 creators on the book, I'm in. I'm excited. Jeff Lemire in particular, I mean, how many times did I say Sweet Tooth on this show? And I'm underselling Jeff Lemire when I say Sweet Tooth because of his Animal Man run. Oh, that stuff was really great. So I mean, he's a creator that I really dig, and having him on a book where there's news with Jeff Lemire later that just has me giddy. But, Phantom Girl, Metamorpho, Mr. Terrific, Plastic Man on a team, that's an exciting team to me. I mean, I'm in for that book. It sounds fun. Mr. Terrific kind of being like the linchpin character. Phantom Girl, obviously, we've seen her back from the future into this one. And, Plastic Man and Metamorpho, we haven't really seen them much since, the whole Rebirth thing. These are characters that, I want to see and I'm interested in. So it's a team on paper. Sounds really, really good to me. So I hope that it's with a creator that's going to obviously do something cool with it. So I hope that stuff. The 3 issues worries me, and I hope that Jim, like you, I hope that's just a rumor. Again, that's a bleeding cool rumor, those aren't always true, and that's why they tell you they're rumors. So I hope that's one that is a rumor that's better thought of, or something that can be quickly remedied if these books do well. So, Jeremy, can we jump back up then to the top and talk about some of the other pieces that, because I really don't want to miss any of the great news that you've got.
Yeah, we could talk about this piece of news. During the DC Publishers panel with Dan Didio and Jim Lee, Grant Morrison actually jumped up on stage and became part of the panel, and he came up and announced Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 2, with Paula Van Gunter being a Superwoman villain, and also an Arkham Asylum 2, but this one is going to be set in the Batman 666 universe.
Yeah. I've been missing some of the wacky stuff that is Grant Morrison. So I was just excited to see him have an opportunity to mess around again with the DC characters. So great. And I actually really like that right now they're in two pieces like Earth 1 and the Batman 666 piece where he can just mess around and do his own thing and make it really smart, and one of those pieces where I just really enjoy it. And it's not set in current continuity. Not that I wouldn't want him doing an in-continuity book, but, he has no shackles on those pieces. Let him go to town, and let me read it, because I'm digging it. So those were announcements I didn't expect coming. I really liked... Did you guys both read Wonder Woman Earth 1?
Yes.
I did not.
It was great. I really enjoyed it. So for a chance for them to be a follow-up of that type of thing is another opportunity for just very similar to how I was enjoying the Superman Earth ones. I was glad to see that the Wonder Woman one is now getting a follow-up of some sort, and I hope this one's just as cool as the first one was. Now that we've gotten to the point where we can do a second volume and kind of take the universe farther.
Yeah, I'm loving these Elseworlds, and even though they're not technically called Elseworlds, that's how I look at them. That's how I think of them, and it's, for me, as you said, let the creators. It gives them a certain freedom, and he's one of those guys where just let him go, let him do his thing. It's in Wonder Woman Earth 1, of course, the 666 universe. I think both of those are two great universes for him to dance in.
And having Arkham Asylum 2, in 2, I think is kind of a bad part of the name because it is in a separate universe. It's not a direct sequel. But it's like when you're in a 666 universe, it's like it's already in a universe that's kind of gone to the wayside. So it's going to be interesting to see how things are so much different in this weird pocket universe over here compared to what the original one was.
I agree with you. It's I guess saying it's Arkham Asylum 2, it's because it's Grant Morrison returning to that concept, right? And quotes. Yeah. I agree with you. I'm torn on it because I don't know that you needed to put a 2 on it. I almost wish they would have called it Arkham Asylum 666. To be honest with you, just put it out there. This is what we were doing in this universe. Arkham Asylum is such a when you look at all your top lists of Batman graphic novels or Batman stories, Arkham Asylum is usually one of those ones that makes that list every time because of its mark on history. So Grant Morrison returning to that type of concept is certainly huge. So obviously the branding of it makes a lot of sense. Is it's naturally going to be... You talk about, I guess, what I was saying earlier. There are people who are no longer reading comics and haven't read it in a long time that read and enjoyed Arkham Asylum. So you tell them Grant Morrison's coming in with Arkham Asylum 2, that's going to be a draw. So I get the point in attaching that to it. I think if you would have said Grant Morrison's returning to Arkham Asylum and they called it Arkham Asylum, I like to eat corn, people would have returned to it just the same. So, I mean, I don't know that you needed to put the number 2 on it. I think something distinguishing the different universe would have been just as fine as well. And here's the thing, who knows what the final name's going to be? Is it actually going to be Arkham Asylum 2, or is it going to be Arkham Asylum with some tagline afterwards? I don't know. I'm glad to see Grant Morrison back. I mean, it's the piece. Go ahead.
I actually really like your title of Arkham Asylum 666. Mm-hmm. I actually think that's a really cool name for it.
I do too. And so I'm hoping fingers crossed that they have a title or they come up with something even better. I'm all for it. Here's a piece. You know, we talked earlier about how there wasn't a ton of news about the main universe itself, but I think your next piece of news is probably the most pivotal because we got that super mini series that's coming out that really... Go ahead. I mean, let's do the piece first and we'll talk more about it.
Okay. Like you said, the next piece is dealing with Doomsday Clock. It's going to be 12 issues, though they didn't state if it was going to be twice a month or monthly, but the feeling was it's going to be a monthly series. We saw some preview art, and there was this quote from Jeff Johns is saying, what would happen when the smartest person in the DC universe, which he said was Lex Luthor, met the smartest person in the Watchmen universe? Like, what would happen? And also, he did confirm that Dr. Manhattan was the one responsible for the lost time in the DC universe.
Now, what I read about this is that it's a 12-issue series, and that when it's done, the rest of the DC universe will catch up to it.
Yes.
So it's supposed to, which leads me to believe that the events of this are very critical, no matter what DC title you're reading right now, to every reader of DC Comics. Because whatever happens in this is going to be either universe changing or universe defining. And I think we've seen with Rebirth the kickoff of this definition of the DC universe. And somehow I feel this Doomsday Clock is going to be... I'm hesitating to say universe changing, because I do think what we're seeing, and we've seen since that initial kickoff Rebirth issue, is this universe being defined. DC taking a look at its properties, taking a look at its comics, and really taking a look at its fans and saying, what do people really want from our books? What did we do right before the New 52? What did we do right during the New 52? Also, though, what's been missing? What are people really looking for? What is it about these characters that make people want to keep coming back month after month? What is it that made people that left go away? And how do we bring them back? What pieces do we need to put into place? I think we've been organically seeing that happening throughout the DC universe since that Rebirth issue. That's not, is everything a home run? Nah, that's true across comics, right? Anytime you experiment with this stuff. But I feel like they're trying to really go back to putting back in some of the basic core pieces of characters that have been missing, concepts that have been missing, in a way that doesn't ignore the sweeping changes that have happened to this universe. And a storyline that's this Doomsday Clock storyline, I thought this was going to be like a 4-issue mini or something when they originally announced it. Now to find out that it's this 12-issue thing that the whole universe is going to catch up to at the end, I'm super stoked because it's Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. I mean, how do you go wrong with that? There's no paper that doesn't look good on, especially with look at what Rebirth did, right? That Rebirth special that came out that Jeff Johns was on. Look what that did. We're still talking about the changes to the universe and the cool things that have come out. We were just talking about Titans, right? Titans really benefited from this. Characters like John really benefited from this type of thing. So to now have Jeff Johns doing this and taking it now, what really is phase 2 of this plan that's going on behind the scenes, I'm excited for that. Probably the news, it's the news I don't want to say I was least surprised of, but I mean, we knew this was coming, this series, but knowing it was going to be 12 issues now, and really knowing that after 12 issues, the whole universe catches up to this bad boy, has me super excited. A small piece of news in the fact that you're looking at just one series, but I think a huge impact.
Yeah, it kind of feels like a 1 year later type of fact.
Yes.
A bit where everything's going to catch up. But it's definitely going to be interesting because also to add on to what you were reading, Jeff Johns also said that it's like, yeah, he was looking at stuff like that happened in Action Comics #1 and all the Crisis and all throughout history. So it's really going to be interesting to see how he meshes everything together and what's going to be brought in and what might not be brought in.
And that's one of the things that we know about Jeff Johns, right, is that he brings in all the comic history. And I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Well, you just said basically what I was about to say, man. In Johns we trust. You tell me he's doing this, you tell me 12 issues, you're going to tell me, Gary Frank, I'm doing my happy dance right now. I'm boogieing just to the concept and the notion that we're going to get this. This, for me, I don't see this as a changing of the universe. I don't see this as a revamping or a relaunching of the universe. I see this as the universe just either realignment or developing, or I don't know. There's multiple terms you could probably use for this. I'm throwing out something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, as in Dr. Manhattan. This isn't just okay, we got to change stuff. Let's redo this to try to beef up our sales. No, this is where the universe has been going. We've seen it here in Superman with Lois and Jonathan. We've seen it here with Wally West, the original Wally West coming back. We've seen it with this. And I see this kind of, to me, is kind of like just that, the continuation of the clock, and it's going to fix. Well, I don't even want to say fix because it's not broken, but it's just going to kind of morph it and adjust it and just bring things on alignment. And I'm really excited to see what gets changed, what stays the same, what goes into that mystery column C that we don't see coming, because it is Jeff Johns. There's going to be swerves that we're not going to see coming, and I'm just giddy in excitement over this one.
I want it to be something that increases sales. I know you're not saying that you don't want it to. I'm at a different point. It's like growing up, you knew that certain things were cheap ploys for sales, right? Variant covers, foil covers, all that kind of stuff for years were kind of hit as a cheap sales ploy. As I've gotten older, when I look at stuff like this is not, and I'm not saying that you were saying it was, Jim, so let me clarify that for everybody listening. I'm not saying that you were saying this. It's interesting that you brought up this point. I found as I've gotten older and I see comic sales go down. And what I mean is comic sales go down. The top tier titles, right, are heroes like your Batmans, characters like Wolverine, some of the big characters across comics that you naturally connect with being your ones that are your linchpins of your universes. When you look at their sales numbers, I think they're disgusting right now because I think the quality is super high right now. I think we've got great creators that are working on books. Does that mean that every book's a home run hit? Nah. And not everyone's going to agree on what those home run hits are, but I would argue that it's really hard nowadays not to find a book that's quality in comics. I think that there's just a ton of interesting quality with some creators that are doing some unique and interesting things. I hope this generates sales. I hope that it brings people in and that they want to read these books. And I hope it's because of the high quality story and the art. I hope it's because there's people who maybe aren't reading comics right now that stepped away, but were fans of Jeff Johns and maybe come back because of him. And they give this book a shot. Now, and Jim, none of this is...
Well, and no, I want to make sure to clarify. I 100% do not even remotely think this is a ploy. And that's the thing. That was the thing I was very excited about, that I never even... The thought of it being a ploy just to inflate sales never came into mind. People have argued that, the new DCU or the Rebirth or 1 year later, back when we started, was just ploys to try to, beef up sales. They wasn't about the story being told. For me, this is the exact opposite of that statement. This is about the story being told. And this is about how, in the beginning of throughout all this stuff, they've laid this groundwork. And they've laid this down where it's, you started here and they're slowly making these little tweaks and these little changes and these little morphings of the universe. And none of them were, to me, a ploy, a cheap ploy. It's, this to me is the actual evolution of the story. And that's the thing that I'm so excited about this, that I've gotten throughout this whole run. Especially when they started introducing the whole Watchmen concept and Dr. Manhattan concept and everything that they're playing. I'm like, man, this is all part of this giant story being told. And that, for me, has always been something I've been excited and really enjoying on the stories I'm getting. So for this is, so if you heard in any way, shape, or form me saying that, I misspoke. Because that's never been my thought or intentions on this storyline. And especially, given, that it is Jeff Johns and it is Gary Frank and it is people that these creators that I see their name, I jump on it just because, you can tell me, oh, Jeff Johns just wrote the phone book. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm getting the phone book just because his name's attached to it. So you add his name to this. I'm like, yes, this is going to be something awesome.
I pre-ordered the Absolute edition of the phone book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just because Jeff Johns is going to be on it, so it's just a little bit larger.
Okay.
No. I guess let me clarify what I was saying there, because I wasn't, and I really do mean this. I wasn't disputing what you were saying. I think one of the things that we need to get away from, and I don't hear it so much anymore. Comics are a business, and I'm going to say this from an independent creator straight on through to your biggest mainstream company. Now, obviously, there's an artistry. A lot of your independent people that get into comics, maybe they're putting their book out. Maybe it's just a single issue that they're getting out, and they work and toil and put all of their heart and soul into it, and they know, I'm probably not going to make any money off of this. But at the end of the day, let's be honest. Of course they would love to. And I really think, comics are an industry, and I want those independent creators to make money. I want DC Comics to make money. I want Marvel. I want Image, Boom, all these companies to make money, right down to your independent creators. So to a certain extent, when these events happen, is there a certain part of it that's a marketing ploy? Sure. What we've found over the years is there's a difference between the ones that, and this is where you were going, Jim, and this is me actually agreeing with you. There are certain events that happen that are clearly just marketing ploys. There's no substance behind them. The quality hasn't been there. I think in recent years we've seen that diminish. We don't see those as often because I think the fans have spoken with their wallets, where they don't do as well. So I think your quality has to be higher now in your events that you're doing. So I don't think we're getting as much of that anymore, but sure, are they marketed as a way that, like, not only are you going to pick up the main title, but I have no doubt that when Doomsday Clock is done, it's going to tie into something. I mean, we're going to have Doomsday Clock month or something like that along the way. And I'm all for it if it gets people reading the books and sets the universe on a path that gets exciting and interesting and drums up people talking about it. So that's great. And I think that's where I've changed as I've gotten older, not because I want companies to be all about making the money. I want them to be about delivering a high level of quality while finding a cool way to market it. Because you need to. We need marketing in this. I want this. I'm selfish right now. I want this to be around another 30 years. And the only way that's going to happen is if we're coming up with ways to garner some interest in this stuff, get it going. And I want that to trickle down to your indie guy who's trying really hard on Kickstarter to get their book noticed, but they're doing something really cool out there. So a lucrative market is really going to generate opportunity for a lot of people out there. So I want to see that. And I know it's a tangent, but I mean, it's a piece that's interesting with this.
Just to add on, I feel like Doomsday Clock is kind of a really good name for it because it ties into the story probably. But I feel like going into what you're talking about, I feel like if they would name this crisis, like something crisis, then I feel more people would think it was a marketing ploy. But since they went Doomsday Clock and you have Jeff Johns on it, it feels like, yes, this will tie in. This will be a story that will be feeling repercussions from now for years to come.
With Marvel, it's been Secret War. With DC, it's been it's been Crisis of some level, being tacked down to things. Both have had great stories under those respective banners. But there comes a point where it's like another Secret War, another Crisis. And this isn't me picking on Marvel. I'm just saying, that's what typically happens. Now, here's the thing. I say that in that tone, but the truth of the matter is, in both cases, Marvel's Secret War, when they've done it, more than once, and DC's Crisis when they've done it more than once. I've actually liked all those stories. So I'm saying that as a fan of all those stories. But I do think that that's something that predominantly has been out there where those names have been used and people grunt and groan and go, another event like that. I'm with you. I think calling it the Doomsday Clock is a brilliant idea. It ties totally into the story and the characters that are involved, but also the foreboding nature of what's really happened to this universe that has been... I'm glad that this wasn't something that was fished out this year and we're seeing the payoff, a few months later. I'm glad this is a story that's built over a few years and we're finally just having now this like, oh, wow, this piece is happening now because it feels big and it feels like something that has some real substance to it. And I can't wait to read all 12 issues of this to see what it means for the comics that I'm already enjoying.
Yeah.
So... what comes next, my friend?
Next up, we are getting a new book. And this one is Duke Thomas is getting his own solo book. It's going to be called Batman, The Signal. It's going to be written predominantly by Tony Patrick with help from Scott Snyder. And Tony Patrick is an alumni of the DC Writers Workshop. And no artist for the book has yet been announced.
I like the premise behind this because Duke's supposed to be this Batman character that can operate in the daylight. So because the introduction of him has always been Bruce has been talking about how he's turning Duke Thomas into a new concept. He's not making another Robin. He's doing something different with him. So I want to see where this story goes. And I think it's really important. I've enjoyed Batman spinoffs over the years and new characters. And we're seeing them in Detective right now, right? Some of my favorite that have spun out. I want to see Duke become that guy that is my new Azrael, right? My new Batwing, my new Batwoman, but he's got to, in order for that to happen, what sets him apart from these other characters? I'm excited to read this Signal book because Duke has been a character that they've taken some time to develop. And it's his development feels a lot like the level of development they gave Tim Drake back in the day. And I think it's been very smart. Let us get to know him gradually. Let him be a supporting character in the Batman book. Let us get to the point where we're like, come on, get him out on the street already. And I felt like that when we finally got him out there and we got to see him using his costume. And so now when they're releasing this book, I'm at a point where I want more Duke Thomas. I want to read Duke Thomas in his own title, and I'm glad that it's not going to be a Batman light book where it's like, yeah, Duke's taking on the missions that Batman just doesn't have time for in the evening. No, Duke's going to be a whole new concept where there's stuff that goes on in Gotham during the day. And Duke's going to be that guy that can be that person. And what does that mean operating in that venue? I think it's just an interesting concept with a storytelling that is naturally going to lend itself to be something different. What is his interaction with Batman going to be like if he's taking on that role? I'm excited for this. I think it's just interesting.
I have a question for both of you, actually, regarding this. What do you think of the name The Signal?
Did you guys both read Dark Days, the casting?
Yeah.
So
I actually haven't yet, so...
Okay. I liked... At first, I knew the name The Signal before reading Dark Days, the casting. So because, Jim, you haven't read it, I'm gonna try to be as general as possible.
Dude,
I don't want to ruin it for you because I think what I like about it is I like how it was done. I'm just going to say, I like how Dark Days, the casting, introduced it. I think the only way for it to work, Jeremy, to answer my question, to answer your question in a way that fits for me, I think if the promise of the name does not pay off in the title, then it doesn't mean anything to me. But I think the name lends itself to being like the mantra of this title, and I want to see him be that person. What is his interaction with because if he's going to be your daytime character, if he's going to be, operating at a completely different time scheme as Batman, he has the potential to be interacting with the public in a way that Batman never would. So that part being that kind of signal, that kind of beacon in Gotham could be really interesting. It all depends on how they pay off. Does that name pay off? For me, it's cool. if it pays off. Otherwise, it just becomes... I don't like the name if it doesn't have a payoff, because otherwise it'd be a weak name to me. But the concept could be really cool with the character. That's my take. I mean, but what do you think? Jeremy, you asked the question, so what is your thinking on it?
It's fine. I like it. I was kind of attached to Lark, personally. But like you said, as long as there is a reason for it and that reason pays off, then I'll be perfectly fine with it.
Storytelling really is what drives all that, though, right? Because here's the thing. 6 months from now, we can say, what a shallow name that turned out to be. Or, if they do it right, we all see the name in a way that even this conversation doesn't do justice to. I'm hoping it's the latter instead of the former, where we're like, okay, that name had a heck of a payoff that I didn't see coming. If so, then we're all happy. If not, then we come back and go, yeah, maybe, if they'd gone with Lark, maybe the story would have gone in a different direction. I don't know. To your point. So I don't know. It all depends on where this story goes. And so I think you're bringing up a great point. Where does this, if this story goes, well, does the name The Signal wind up being more Azrael? Because Azrael seems to be a Batman family. I'd actually like to see him surpass Azrael. Because Azrael's been a character that has done well over the years, but has fizzled and then come back again and fizzled and come back again. It would be great if The Signal was more Nightwing than that, where we all of a sudden go, Duke Thomas is our new Tim Drake, our new Damian, our new Nightwing. If he falls into that category, Batgirl, Batwoman, far more than the others. So,
because you think about just the bat signal itself, when it shines up in the night sky, it invokes multiple emotions from people. There are some people who, when they see the signal, it gives them hope, saying, okay, Batman's coming, we'll be safe. Or in others where it's the, man, I didn't know it was this bad, all hope is lost, they're calling in for Batman. So there's different ways that the signal can be interpreted by different people. And I think for me, I'm hoping that's kind of how this is looked at, because that's something about Duke where, Bruce has always said he's not training another Robin. He's not training another sidekick. So Duke's got to be his own person. He's got to be that signal, that beacon, what is he going to be? Is he going to be that entity that when he arrives on the scene that people are like, oh, thank God he's here? Or is it going to be something more, are they going to be worried about him being there? Are they going to, that's the kind of stuff I want to see, especially with Duke, with who he is and who he's been throughout his time here. He's had these moments in his life where he's been that iconic, he's been that hero. He's been that guy who gut checks and overcomes adversity, but he's also been that guy who's had to deal with serious, nasty situations. And can he, keep control of who is his darkness and keep being that signal, keep being that beacon of light, keep being that hope.
So we're on to evil Batman, Jeremy.
The next news, again, there's not really much to say, as is mostly just a picture, but we do get the first looks at the evil Batmen that are going to be coming from the dark universe or the dark multiverse into the main DCU line. And just from general impressions, they look pretty awesome.
I really like the concept from reading the two Dark Days books, especially reading the casting now. And again, I'm going to try to be as spoiler-free as possible. I know, Jim, you're saying don't worry about that, but I really I liked Dark Days, the casting, so much that I want you to read and experience it, because it was a great story. But it continues on this whole metal thing, and really we've had two prelude issues now on where this is going, and these are the initial wave of villains that are coming out, remembering that this is a Batman story that has turned into a DC Universe story. So, you need a team that we're going to be looking at right now going, okay, Justice League's going to have some fun with these guys. And that's the part that I'm excited about. They look imposing. I like that they're adding something new to DC lore. I got to admit that I love the fact that it starts off with the Hawk family. And it's a really good story that goes back to kind of expanding what we know about Nth Metal and metal in general. There's now a piece to Hawkman lore that has been added in that wasn't there before that connects to Batman to a larger mystery throughout history. In the story, this is a little spoilery, Hawkman refers to himself as not just an archaeologist, but actually points to himself as that, meaning that he's a detective. And seeing that connection between him, a history detective, I guess would be a way you'd look at that. He doesn't say it that way, but you could say it that way. And, that makes a connection with him and Batman, and seeing these stories kind of interconnect that way is something that's fun for me. I'm going to admit 110% I'm geeking out because of the handling of Hawkman in this. I love the way that he's been used as kind of a historical piece leading into this. This is all done through the Journal of Carter Hall, leading into this storyline that the Justice League's now going against this metal universe that's coming in. It's bringing in a different era of a different area of the multiverse than we've been aware of. We're finding out a secret now that hasn't been around, and they're adding something. Scott Snyder's been a genius at this, right? Court of Owls, how awesome is that? Bloom, awesome. I mean, so he's adding new things to the mythos that are things I want to see more of again. So I have confidence that you mentioned before, Jim and Johns we trust. In Scott Snyder, I trust. And we trust, right? I mean, he's been one of those writers that now has added nothing but good things to this universe. And I'm hoping this is yet another check mark on his list where we go, wow, that was an epic story that really pushed our heroes to a place that we never saw them go to. He has a way of putting them up against monumental odds, but then delivering this moment where at the end you just feel great about the hero, right? And I want to see that happen in this storyline. I want to feel great. I want to feel great about the DC Universe heroes spinning out of this. Great time for this to happen leading up to the Doomsday Clock, because I think this overlaps, if I remember correctly, with the Doomsday Clock a little bit. So it'll be nice that we have this event coming to a close as the Doomsday Clock begins, I believe is how this is going to work out. And I'm excited that there's so much to look forward to in the DC Universe with these big events going on right now.
Yes, because Doomsday Clock, I believe, starts in December, and with Metal, I think it ends in December because that's whenever the Dark Matter line books come out. So it's going to be that nice segue.
Yeah, which is, I think, great timing, coming from one big epic happening to this next one. It's a cool time to be a DC fan. I think these are two big events that have just got me excited for. I mean, it's really over a year worth of content, because next San Diego Comic-Con, the events they're talking about from this one will actually still be occurring.
Yeah, but if we want to move on to the next piece of news,
sure.
This one, even though Frank Miller has talked about wanting to do this, I think it still came as a little bit of a surprise. But it was announced at San Diego Comic-Con that Frank Miller and John Romita Jr. is going to be doing a Superman Year One graphic novel.
That's cool. It's funny, Jimmy, you and I talked about this one off the air, and I've so run, I don't want to say hot and cold over that because I never really ran cold. It's more lukewarm and hot to it, the more I've been thinking about it. I was lukewarm at first just because in recent years, Frank Miller stuff, and I'm a Frank Miller geek, but his stuff has been kind of, all right, good. The most recent Dark Knight series has really changed that for me. I think the DKR stuff that's been coming out recently, I've gotten excited for. It's been kind of a reinvigoration of that kind of universe for me. So the idea of him doing a Superman Year One now, first of all, what I like about it is it's gets him away from doing more Batman stuff. And I don't mean that as a knock. I actually like the DKR stuff that's coming out right now. It's more of the idea of him exploring Superman as supporting cast, his kind of take on what that Year One is like. It's going to be a graphic novel. I wonder how much is this going to be considered continuity? Is it going to be considered multiverse? Is it going to be considered Superman Year One in his DKR universe? I don't know. You give me him with John Romita Jr., I'm interested in that because of their work together on Daredevil, which was absolutely phenomenal. So you're putting back together two people that when they've worked together previously have done some things that are pretty magical. But that's my take. Where are you guys at on this one?
I haven't been the biggest fan of JRJR, truthfully. And I'm not sure. This one's to be a wait and see. If it gets great, if it's going to get good reviews, I may check it out. But this one is actually a pass for me.
Jim?
Well, I dig JR Squared, so and Frank Miller, he is one of those guys that he has fired hot and cold for me, but just hearing this, I'm in, just because one, I want to see where they go with this, and he's had those, Miller has had those times where he's just been completely on fire for me, and I'm like, yes. And I've had other times when I'm like, okay, I don't know, but just the fact that I've had those great moments with him, had me, I'm going to pick this thing up. And as I said, Ramita Jr., he's one of those guys that I've really grown to really enjoy his artwork. And I was a solid yes on this one just from the one sentence on it. And add to it, it's Superman. So I'm like, okay. And I'm curious to see what Superman this is. How are they doing this? Is this going to be an Elseworld Superman? Is this going to be Superman in the Dark Knight universe? His year one? Which Superman is this going to be? And that, for me, that was the big question as to, which one is it going to be? Who is it going to be?
Actually, Jeremy, you've got me interested now. Because I think first of all, there's nothing wrong with you saying, hey, this is kind of a pass show. I'm just not really interested. Cool. What is you mentioned that you haven't been that big on JRJR. Did you was your exposure to him mainly his DC stuff? Did you read any of the stuff that he did with Marvel? What is your history with him as an artist?
My history of JRJR is mostly his DC stuff. I've never really read anything he did over at Marvel, but primarily like with his Superman run and all that. It feels everything too many sharp edges for me. Nothing's kind of rounded out. But again, that could just be his art style changing over time. But it's just, it wasn't my thing.
And it's very much, here's the thing. I'm very familiar with him. I grew up with him at Marvel when he did long runs on Uncanny X-Men, for example, and Spider-Man. So I'm very familiar with him as an artist. So it was interesting when he came here, it was like a dream. I will agree, Jim, you had the same issue when he initially came over, I think. And if I'm misquoting you, please correct me. But
100% on that.
So it is a different sort of art style. So it's interesting how, I kind of take it for granted. I think, Jim, you were kind of the first one that woke me up to kind of, wow, I guess I didn't realize just how different his art style was, because I just take it for granted that he's just a brilliant artist, and I love him that way. It is a different art style from a DC artist who he has. It's kind of a different sort of take. I've really enjoyed his DC stuff. Here's my question. If the series gets critical acclaim, because it's a graphic novel, right? Isn't that what they're announcing it as?
Yes.
If it gets critical acclaim and you all of a sudden hear that, wow, people are loving this, which I'm hoping, I'm going to pick it up because of the talent. I'm hoping that it is one of those versus being something where people go, man, that was a disappointment. Because, that means I win out if it's great, because that means it's something that I'm really going to enjoy. Do you see yourself picking that up if it gets a lot of acclaim around it? Or is it something, because I get your point, art's subjective. And what I mean is, we could go and talk for hours just on favorite art, right? And I guarantee you, all three of us, in the end, we'd have some similarities that cross over, but there's going to be some big distinctions as we go through. And they're all valid because, that's part of the fun of this hobby, right? How easily you can, find certain styles and certain line work that you enjoy, and none of it's wrong. It's what's great about having a ton of books to pick from is the talent. If you hear this is really good, because it's John Romita Jr., would that be, you go, you know what, it's not my art style, so I understand everyone's saying it's great. I'm probably not going to pick it up. But if you're hearing from a lot of people, it's great. What would you do in that end? I mean, is that, and I don't, there's not a wrong answer. I'm fascinated by this just because it's a different sort of take on it.
I think I'll check it out. If people were so excited for it, say it's that good, I would have no problem checking it out at least.
Can you do us a huge favor? If it winds up being something you do check out, can you make sure to let me know? And whether you call in or pop it on the or I'll just pop you on the show. I'd love to follow up on this because I find this stuff fascinating because I think there's no wrong answer with comics. I think there's a reason why we've got 10 billion comics coming out each month, and I love the diversity of it because of the fact that there's different writers and artists on every title. And you hope that I believe that there's something out there for everyone. And I do believe that different, Jim, on our show, how many times have you and I had debates over some of my favorite artists that you just didn't care for? Or maybe you liked it, but you didn't quite like it the way that I did. I think you learn quickly in having conversations with people about comics that it's not one size fits all. And that's what's fun about it. So I would love to follow up on that one just because I think it's interesting. I want it to be great because Frank Miller has been so important from his Daredevil run, which is really where I got to know him, straight on through to Dark Knight Returns and so forth. I want this to be one of the banner pieces for Frank Miller versus being one of those where it's Frank Miller light. So my fingers are crossed that this is some big epic Superman story he's always wanted to tell, and our socks are blown off because if it makes a mark, it's good for all of us. All right, we talked about the Dark Matter line already, and then...
Well, actually, I want to add one more thing for the Dark Matter line, because I noticed I forgot to put this bit of news in there. Or if I think I did, it might not saved. However, just going back with the Dark Matter line, each book is going to be $2.99, no variants, but the cover, if you buy physical, it's going to fold out.
That's cool.
Yeah, I just noticed that wasn't on there.
So no variants, which the variants have been something, Jim. It's interesting how the variant discussion comes up. I don't want to say I run hot and cold on variants. I think my attitude towards variants have shifted in recent years because I think I've liked what DC's been doing with their themed variants. And it's just a personal preference. You don't have to pick them up. There's nothing story-driven about them. If you choose to pick up the theme variants, great. I don't mind that they're looking at these books and saying, you know what? We really want to put these books out at the $2.99 price point, which seems to be a magic price point. Once you start going beyond that, people start to balk. I give them credit for saying, this is about these titles. We're not going to do the 8 different covers or anything like that. We're going to do this cool thing with it. We're going to keep it at $2.99 and really try to target a fan who's saying, I'm on a budget. But we believe in these. We believe there's a strong story behind these, and these are books we want to come out. I hope it's successful for them for that reason. I honestly hope that the quality's high. On paper, it all sounds really good because they've got top-tier talent on these titles. So on paper, they've got me. I want the stories to match what I'm seeing on paper. And only time will tell.
Yeah, and going back to the $2.99 price point, having that $2.99 price point for all the Dark Matter books, it basically has guaranteed me that I'm going to probably pick up at least issue 1 of all the books just to at least try them out because of the price point. If it was $3.99, there would be no way I would be doing that.
That's a great point. Because what ends up happening is most people have access to some form of discount, even if you, a lot of your local comic shops will do, obviously our sponsor does the 50% off deal. But your local comic shops will do some form of, if you're on a pull list deal, usually some form of percentage discount. Some of them do. So coming off of $2.99 versus $3.99 means a savings for everybody. But even at the $2.99 price point, you're talking about $1 less than your $3.99 books, which if you're trying multiple titles, after you've bought 3 of them, you've got another one. It's, you really, buy 3, get 1 free if you're going off the $3.99 price point. I really like, from a budget standpoint, that they're being smart with this. Because that $3.99 is starting to get expensive for comics. And I'm a huge fan of comics. I'll always keep reading. They make them $9.99. I'll still be picking up something. But it will significantly decrease what I pick up as they get more and more expensive. God, I hope I'm not prophesizing by making that statement. Do you remember, Jim, when we were doing episode 501, and this is gonna be us at $9.99 saying, and books were only $3.99. I hope that's not the case. Yeah, I give them credit for the $2.99. That when they did that whole bit with holding the line at $2.99, I thought that was a great promotion. I hope that they market these books with that price point as part of what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because DC, I think, really found a really good medium. It's like, okay, yeah, the monthly books are $3.99, but the twice a month books are $2.99. And if you really look at it, you're kind of paying even a little bit more because, like, you're paying overall like $2.99 twice a month for the same book. But whenever it's coming out that frequently, you don't really care in a way.
And a lot of those titles that are shipped twice a month are titles that had multiple other titles. Like if you look at Batman and Detective, that was a 4-book line and then some before. Mm-hmm. So they replaced those 2 other Batman books with the books just being twice monthly. Same thing with the Green Lantern, right? That was at least a 4-book line at various times, depending on what was going on. So it's still a 4-book line. They've just shifted. We certainly picked up some other titles that never had been delivered with that frequency, but there's a number of them where they really just took a multi-book line and shifted them over that way. And I don't have an issue with that. I'm going to be curious to see how successful this winds up being for DC as we move forward, and what books wind up staying. Because what's going to happen is certain books are going to stay this format, and I know some of them are going to shift back or something, and it's going to be curious to see how that works out.
Yeah. All right. If you want to move on to our next piece of news,
go ahead.
You have a possible Vertigo reboot. Young Animal, which is Drawaway's line, is now going to be under the Vertigo umbrella. And during the Vertigo panel, they showed a reel of like different images and all that. And it led to a possibility that there might be a new Sandman book coming and a new Invisible book coming, and also gave the date of 8/8/18, which is a Wednesday, and I believe it's an anniversary date for them. So it might be just a prelude to, hey, we're going to do this rebirth of the Vertigo line, so to speak.
First of all, Young Animals, duh. I have no doubt that those books really should be Vertigo books anyway. So, yeah, mainly because they fall under that kind of, interesting creative banner. So cool. I'm glad they're yanking that under that line. I'm glad they're throwing some support back at Vertigo, because it seems to have been, I want to be careful how I word this, it seems to be a line that either DC's chosen to want to acknowledge or not acknowledge over recent years. And to me, I think it's a very important line for DC. When they mention titles like Sandman and the Invisibles, hope the creators that are attached to them, I hope are, if they're not the originals, which would be Neil Gaiman and Grant Morrison, if they aren't the originals, I hope they are people that they have approved to take over those books. So many great titles have come out of Vertigo. So many of them have been in absolute editions that I have sitting on my shelf that I'm looking at right now. Because they're series that are really important to me. It's stuff that you can't really tell normally in a normal DC book, in a normal DC superhero book. And some of the best comic creators have come out of that line. So I'm hoping that this winds up being a successful relaunch, and that we wind up getting some great titles doing really well out of this. Because I think it's an important line that there's people that will read comic books as an art form that maybe will never touch a superhero book. There's people like, I fall under the category of the people that I love the comic medium for all of the stories it can tell. So I would love to see Vertigo be reimagined. I would like to see things like trade paperbacks count for it. I would like to see things like digital count for it, because I think it's a line that has the potential to reach a new audience. I think Vertigo, the question has always been, did the monthly sales count as much, or did the trade paperback sales count as much as the monthly title sales? And I don't know that we've ever really gotten an answer on that. Does a good trade run on Vertigo count the same as a monthly? And I don't know. I'm hoping for this, that this is one of those lines where maybe a new format or a new way of looking at sales will benefit this particular line. I don't know. I'm excited for it.
Well, going back to what we're discussing with the Prestige format, could that significantly help the Vertigo line?
I hope, because I think it's one of those that it's traditionally known to do well, to have done well in the past with a bookstore crowd, and I've always liked reading Vertigo, even the books that I collected monthly in Vertigo, because I read so many titles. A lot of times the Vertigo were the ones that I read in arcs, where I would stockpile the whole arc and then read the singles, the monthlies, in the arc, just because that seemed to be the way that line was written. Brian Azzarello was at a convention, I'm going back maybe a decade ago. It was a Wizard World Chicago. For DC had a Vertigo panel there. So that tells you, with the shift in Wizard World's conventions away from comics, that it was some time ago. Not that Wizard World doesn't do something with comics, but the big companies don't, show the support at all the Wizard World shows. So Wizard World Chicago, Brian Azzarello was talking about Vertigo. And he said at that time, the people in this room are really not Vertigo's target audience. He said, not that we don't appreciate you as fans, we do. But he said, really, Vertigo's audience is the trade paperback bookstore crowd. It was interesting that he was mentioning it back then. It was during the height of 100 Bullets. It wasn't near finished, but it was one of the more popular titles at that time for Vertigo. And for him to be talking that way about it was really interesting to me. And I think it's one of those lines, to your point, Jeremy, this new format, maybe this Vertigo is one of the ones where you try this kind of thing out and see if it has some legs. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But glad to hear that they're doing something with that line, because it's one of my favorite DC lines, and it's one of the ones I get the most scared for.
All right. Next piece of news, keeping with Vertigo Young Animal. This is dealing with Young Animal. In January, there will be a JLA and Doom Patrol crossover with Gerard Way, Steve Orlando, and Aiko.
Cool. I'm all in for that.
They actually came out with I guess was going to be the cover, which looks like Milkman Superman.
Yeah, I'm all in for that. Just because of the writers. I mean, to have Gerard Way and Steve Orlando working together on that, yeah, I'm in. I'm excited for that. That's great. So we've actually got the creators working on those respective characters. I'm in. I think that's cool.
Yeah, Doom Patrol's been kind of fun and, kind of cool and weird and wacky and whatnot. So I am in on this one.
Okay, this next story I know, Sean, you're gonna love.
No, wait, I gotta stop you first, because before you announce this, I've got to ask a question.
Yes.
Your numbering was in no particular order, right, of importance? You just kind of you went through and you were trying to make sure you got all the news down. You didn't put it in order of importance. Am I understanding this correctly? Because when I read this list, logically, I'm looking at this list and I'm like, well, he can't have been putting this in order, because we would have started with this. So, I mean, I get what you're doing here, and I really appreciate your list. And obviously, time-wise, you didn't have a chance to put these in chronological order, right? Or, I mean, order of importance, I should say, correct?
As I saw them, I wrote them down.
So let's go to what I consider to be the absolute. Let me take the joking out of this, actually. This is really important news for me. I'm psyched about this, so go for it.
Yep. During Batman Metal, we're going to get a Hawkman Found book, which is being written by Jeff Lemire. And during the panel, whenever they're talking about the Hawkman Found book, Lemire floated the possibility that if this did well, that he could be writing a Hawkman ongoing book.
Please buy this. Try it. If you've never read Hawkman, try it. And let me explain why. I'm really not saying this facetiously to people out there. This is my plea to our listening audience on this. I'm a huge Hawkman fan because of the great creators that have written Hawkman in the past. Jeff Lemire is one of my favorite creators. Since he's been done Sweet Tooth, he's somebody who I've really followed to his work in DC, in Marvel, independent, at Valiant. He's just a writer that I really enjoy. Hearing that Jeff Lemire is going to be doing any form of Hawkman has me geeked out. I'm really excited for this. So what I would really ask our listening audience to do, don't buy it for no reason. Give it a shot. If you love it, keep buying it and support it. If you don't, that's cool. I respect it. I'm asking you, this is my plea as a Hawkman fan, because of the creator that's involved. I think I'm doing you a favor by asking you to read this, because Jeff Lemire is that good of a writer that I think I'm asking you to read something that the talent warrants picking this up. So I would ask you, if you're like, I'm kind of a casual Hawkman fan, give this a shot because of Lemire. Please. And if you like it, shout it out. If you don't, drop it. Sure. I mean, so I'm not asking anybody to don't burst your wallet over this type of thing. But please give it a shot, because if this does well, I want the monthly. And I want Lemire writing it. This on paper for me is like a dream, because it's a character that I've wanted to see back monthly again. If you're telling me there's a shot that Jeff Lemire is going to do an ongoing with Hawkman, I'm salivating at this. So I want this book to do well. But I want it to do well honestly. So I'm asking people, give this book a shot for me. We don't ask for anything for the show. We don't ask you to buy anything from us or, contribute to the podcast, other than the fact that we appreciate your time listening to this show. This one, I'm asking a favor. Try this book, please. I would love this to go monthly, and I'd love us to have something to do with it. So, and I honestly, our audience could tip the scale on this. We need numbers. So if you like it, shout it out. Let's go viral with this book. And I'm asking if you like it. I'm not asking anybody to lie about it. Try it. If you like it, go nuts virally with it. If you don't, I respect it. Even call into the show if you don't like it. I'll take some hits on it. So if I'm asking you to pick it up and you don't like it, call in, tell us why. If you do like it and it surprised you, call in and tell us why, because I'd love to hear it. I mean, so on any of this one, I'm going to actually make this book a show challenge. We are going to talk about this book on the show. That's where I'm being a cruel dictator, Jim. Because it's Hawkman and Jeff Lemire writing it. That's really the piece that I'm excited about, because I'll be honest, I'm a geeky enough Hawkman fan that no matter who was on it, I would be geeked out to get a new Hawkman miniseries on any level. You're putting Jeff Lemire on it. That is a top-tier talent that I think really could do something unique with this character. So I am geeking out about this one, and I know I'm dominating this discussion, but I don't think that's really anybody's shock on this one. It was one of our friends, and I feel so bad that I'm forgetting his name right now. Tagged me in the post. You guys were talking about this, and he tagged me. He said, "Sean's gonna know about this," and tagged me on this thing. I was because that was how I found out the news. So thank you guys, all of you that were in that discussion, for thinking of me. I know, Jeremy, you were part of the discussion too, for thinking of me with this, because when I found out this news, I was salivating. And I found it out from our group. So yay, everyone there. Thank you guys for looking out for me, because I was glad to share this moment with you guys, because I'm excited for this. This was big news for me out of the...
As you went on that pitch for everybody to read Hawkman, I have this image now in my head. Are you both familiar with the Uncle Sam, like, we want you to join the U.S. Army, and
Yes.
Uncle Sam pointing? I have a picture of you, Sean, doing that, but underneath it says, we want you to read Hawkman.
It's got to be me in like a Hawkman headdress, right? Going, I want you.
I have that mental image now stuck in my head.
And
Well, now it's in mine.
Well, you know what? Here's part of the problem with that, though. That would really backfire on me. Because here's the thing. People listen to the show would pick up the book on general principle of how ridiculous I would look wearing that. But then other people would be scared away. It was like, no, we're going to pass on this. I'm excited. I'm actually excited for the next news, too.
Well,
Yeah.
hold on. Let me throw out a quick comment here
Please.
on this whole thing. You've been gushing so much about Sweet Tooth over the years that I went out and I picked up these. I picked up Sweet Tooth because I'm like, okay, I got to see what Sean's been gushing about. And I'll tell you something. He's really good, and his writing style will fit Hawkman, will fit that, because over the years I've developed an appreciation for the character, in that there is that duality of man, where he is that warrior, but he is the archaeologist, he is the intelligent, the investigator, just the adventurer. So there is that nice duality in who Hawkman is, and Lemire's got he's a good writer for that style of duality and nature of man and this kind of character. So I'm also looking forward to this, and I think he will be a good fit for Hawkman. So I'm all in on the Hawkman found book as well.
I want to piggyback on something you said there, Jim. First of all, I'm thrilled to death that you picked up Sweet Tooth and you liked it, because it's a different sort of read, and it's a special story. It's actually, the characters are really endearing. And not just the main character, the cast. It's a really great story. Sweet Tooth, let me take the Hawkman piece out of it. I'm going to say it again. If there's people listening to this that have never picked up Sweet Tooth, it's a great Vertigo read. If it's something that you're like, it's not really, something that I would normally pick up, it's a great character-driven drama. Very unique genetic experiment kind of gone wrong situation with a character that really... The main character is this kid who's really from a genetic, situation gone wrong. And he winds up being this endearing character that I think every comic fan who has felt, disenfranchised or different. I think we all feel a little different, right? That's part of one of the connecting threads of being a comic fan. We're, a little bit of an odd bunch. I'm like the poster child of that. It's one of those stories that I think speaks to us, and Sweet Tooth's one that I just want to shout out. It completed its run, so it's a beginning, middle, and ending story. So if you read the first trade and you like it, it's worth picking it up, because you can actually pick up the whole thing gradually and really enjoy a great story that had a beginning, middle, and an intended end. And it's something I highly recommend. So anybody out there who hasn't read it, I just want to shout that one out again. Jeff Lemire is a writer that I really greatly enjoy.
All right. Let's move on to our next piece of news then, which is they were during the Wildstorm panel, they were talking about the anniversary book that I think comes out here in the next couple of months. And J. Scott Campbell actually came up on stage and was talking about it and said he's doing a short Gen 13 story for it.
That's going to be sweet. I'm a big fan of Gen 13. I was a little late to the dance with Gen 13. I actually got into the characters during the Worldstorm relaunch and went back and read a lot of the previous material. So I read, J. Scott Campbell's the creator of them. So I read the J. Scott Campbell stuff and really love those characters. So more Gen 13, yeah. Very cool for me.
Yeah, I'm going to echo on this one. Because, Gen 13, late in the game, but that was a team that I quickly had, I want more of this. And I went back and I picked up some of the older stuff, some of the original stuff. I wanted to compare the past and present, how they compared up and whatnot. So, this was one of those, I was like, okay, this should be a cool book to pick up, and kind of wondering what kind of stories. And I always wonder what more can come out of the Wildstorm. Can we get another run? Can we get, another arc or another, own universe that runs off of it? And I don't know, hearing, we're going to get some more stories from the Wildstorm universe. I'm excited and curious to see what we get.
I'm going to make a little comment about Jeremy's notes here. For a guy who says he's not picking up the Superman Year One graphic novel, he's sure putting in subliminal messages about it. I'm just saying, I was reading the notes here. Number 7 and number 13 were Superman Year One by Frank Miller. Somebody's protesting a little too much. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I actually put that in twice. So let's just skip over that.
I couldn't resist. I was like laughing when I saw it. I'm like, oh, there's no way I'm letting him go on this.
It's glad to hear somebody else gets it from Sean. All right.
Oh, I'm not done with you yet. This is we're here forever.
But for our actual final bit of comic book news, Batman Day this year will not be Batman Day, but Harley Quinn Day because of her anniversary.
Cool.
Yeah, just a fun little tidbit that they put out there.
Now, You mentioned something earlier, and I think we kind of addressed this, and it's probably a good way to cap this off, and then we'll jump into the TV show news and the movie news and such. You mentioned how this was a little bit lighter on the comic news, and I would agree. I actually really like the news tidbits that are out there, but you're right, there wasn't a ton of DC Comics news over there. I think they touched on some big events that have, I think, an impact on every single book in the universe and all the characters in the universe. They talk about reimagining a line, with the Vertigo line coming back again, and moving Young Animals over there, I think, is a smart move. But you're right. There isn't a whole lot of news out of their comic line. And that's surprising in something where there used to be days of panels, where there was really by almost like the Batman panel, the Superman panel, the Justice League panel, the This Line panel. So it's interesting that this wasn't a theme of, like blanket news like that this time. I'm going to be curious to see what happens. I really liked everything that came out of this, and I actually felt like maybe it gave me a chance to digest some of this news more and target myself. But I'm going to be curious what this means for things like New York or Emerald City and some of those other conventions where we're used to multiple DC panels moving forward. If this is going to be a trend, or if it's just because of the state of where the universe is right now, we're building towards the announcements that we would get next year at this time, after the end of Doomsday Clock. Because Doomsday Clock looks like it's going to have a big impact. And I wonder if next year's panels are going to be reminiscent of the state of the universe post-Doomsday Clock. I don't know.
Yeah. Because, I was hoping, fans have been clamoring for, a Shazam book or JSA book, or for me personally, more... I like a Magic ongoing book. So it felt like, everything we heard was cool, but it was a lot of tertiary stuff. It wasn't, other than Doomsday Clock, it wasn't really the main line. But I feel like you said, New York or Emerald City are going to be places that we may get that news more so than San Diego.
I'm hoping Doomsday Clock leads to everything you just said. Because I would love another Magic book. I'm with you on that end. That's a important part of the DC universe for me. A huge JSA fan. I would love to see all of that. Legion is something that they've, it's on the back burner, but it's something that they're, talking about. So I don't know. Shazam. I grew up loving that character. I think in all of those cases, I want them launched. I want them launched well. So I'm hoping this is leading towards. It seems like all of these announcements were really targeted and were very specific and fleshed out. I'm hoping we get more of that when these books are announced that you're talking about. And I mean, JSA's one they've been hinting at is definitely coming. I thought Shazam was another one too. And I'm with you. I thought there was a Magic book on the lineup. So I don't know. I think what it is Doomsday Clock is leading to all of these things. I think.
Yeah. Because they did just announce a Magic book that's a mini, but not they've been announcing a lot of minis, but not necessarily ongoings. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, but it just have to wait and see.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
Guys, let's talk about some of the TV and movie news that was spinning out of San Diego. I'm very there's a lot to geek out about.
Yeah. First off, for the TV show news is we're going to go animated, and they really talked up Young Justice Season 3, or Young Justice Season 3 Outsiders, as it's going to be called. They released some photos, of the who's going to be on the show. And the main core is going to be Static, Kid Flash, Robin, Wonder Girl, Spoiler, Blue Beetle, 13, Arrowette, Arsenal, and Beast Boy. Also, Connor, Dick, Calder, and Artemis are going to return. And since it's on the DC's new digital, or DC Warner Brothers' new digital platform, it will be able to deal with darker themes based on how the characters have aged over time. And like I said, it's going to be airing on its digital service.
Do we have any details on that digital? Like, first of all, let me say this. I'm a huge fan of Young Justice, so I love the fact that this cartoon was so well received that they're reviving it. And it warrants it. Here's the catch. I have no idea how to view this thing. Do we know anything about how to view this yet?
Unfortunately, no. And I was hoping that we would get news from Comic-Con, because I felt like that would be a good, hey, this is at least the parameters of it. Maybe not everything, but this is the basics of it. But we never got anything.
Yes, I'm hoping they do that. Here's another thing. That digital service should have some comic link to it. What I mean is, I think that there is an animation audience, fans of straight animation. I have a lot of anime fans that they aren't just fans of Japanese animation. They're fans of all hand-drawn and digital animation. That would be a great spot to have maybe some kind of special deal for Comixology or something like that, for some trades or something, or an ongoing... Marvel's got their comic service where you can... forget the name of it right now. You can
Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah, where you can you get an unlimited a subscription to almost Marvel's entire lineup up to a certain point. I think that's great. This would be a great way to maybe link something like that, or selected titles or something like that in this platform. I don't know what that would look like, but I would love to see some link for this. I don't know what they're planning to do with this digital service, but this is a good start. Young Justice is a hook for me. I don't know if is this supposed to be a paid service? Do we know?
Yes, it's going to be a paid service, but I don't imagine it's going to be a whole lot. But it's going to be a paid service. It's going to have Young Justice Season 3, and it's going to have the Titans TV show, the show on it as well.
Sweet.
The Titans show is going to be part of that digital service.
That's sweet.
And Young Justice is going to be 26 episodes, and Titans, they came out, is going to be 13.
So 26 animated episodes are they going to be full-length episodes, did they say?
I would assume. I would assume it's going to be like the other 2 seasons.
Sweet. And 13 episodes of the TV series. Obviously, if the service does well, they will commission more. So it's going to be like their Netflix, I guess, right?
Yeah, kind of.
So if the price is right, I don't have any issue with it. I'm already getting a couple of digital streaming services. I get Hulu, I get Netflix, I do Crunchyroll, or I could do the VDR, whatever that one is. They have one now that has Crunchyroll and a couple other things in it. So I like that kind of stuff. It's got to be the right price point, though. And I do the WWE Network. So if you're gonna get me to add yet another service, hitting Young Justice on their Season 3 and making it exclusive is a pretty good way to get me to look at you. And obviously the Titans as well. The Young Justice one is, honestly, I'm excited for the Teen Titans live action show. The Young Justice cartoon is so good, though, that's my draw right now. The Titans show's a bonus.
Yeah, I personally cannot wait for Young Justice Season 3. And I've actually kind of gone back and been rewatching Young Justice. Though I am really excited for Titans, because I'm excited to see the visual effects, see if they could do how well they're going to do Starfire, and how well they're going to do Raven, who's one of my favorite characters. So
I like the second piece of news, because this is a show that Krypton is a show that I really haven't heard a whole lot about, other than the fact that it predates a lot of what we know about Krypton.
Yeah, Krypton went from a show that people were lukewarm onto it, but now, basing just what I've read online, people are starting to get interested in. Krypton will actually not be connected to the DCEU. I know it says now be connected on my notes, but they actually came out and clarified. It will not be part of the DCEU. It will have Flamebird and Nightwing, the Kryptonian vigilantes, as part of the show. And you're going to have Hawkgirl, Adam Strange, Doomsday, and Brainiac on the show. The show will have a time travel twist, as villains will go from the future to the past and try to stop the birth of Superman. And it will deal with Seg-El, basically Clark's grandfather or great-grandfather. And it was due to events outside of his control. His family legacy is stripped, and they're thrown into the very bottom of Kryptonian society. And that's where the show begins. And it also goes on to say one of the massive arcs of the show is how does Seg earn the legacy of the House of L symbol. And the show will premiere it on the Sci-Fi Channel in 2018.
I'm excited for that more. Here's the thing. Now that they've finally fleshed out more of it, I'm in. It's going to be kind of more like Gotham, right? Where Gotham's kind of its own thing. So this is going to be its own thing. And honestly, I think the show's better served by being its own thing.
Yeah, I was interested in it from the beginning just because of the Kryptonian society. I wanted to see how they portrayed it. Now, it's weird saying with bringing in the fact that we're going to have the time travel twist with the villains trying to kill Superman before he's born. That's where I wonder. I'm curious as to how that's going to play out because I didn't hear any of that until just now. Until we got the notes and whatnot. So, but those are the things where that could be a really cool story, or that could potentially take and derail a show. So that is something I'm curious about, and I'm wondering if it's going to throw it off. If they're going to be so focused on who's going to time travel this week. Or are they going to focus on Kryptonian society where, hey, surprise, here's a little twist for you. That's where I want to see what level of this is going to get and how much of this is going to be about Krypton, how much of this is going to be about people trying to stop Superman being born, or is there, how much is Flamebird and Nightwing going to be a part of this? There's a lot of different things where I'm like, I'm curious, I'm wondering. It's one of those kind of, what are they going to do here? And so it's funny. The news has me thinking more about the series, and I'm wondering, okay, is it going to be A, B, C, D, or Z? Where's this going to go?
I think it's going to be Q.
It's going to be Q.
I think what's interesting is with the names they've already said. I can't help but wonder if when it says it as a time travel spin. I don't know that it has to be that every week that somebody's time traveling. I'm wondering if maybe the time travel is certain villains have come to the past to try and kill Superman, meaning going after the House of L. But maybe that's also why we've got Hawkgirl and Adam Strange there. They're there to try and stop them.
Though I would love for Nightwing to meet Nightwing.
Sure.
Yeah. Just for Dick to meet his namesake would be interesting.
I'm all in for that.
Oh, big time.
But it definitely feels like now that we know more about the show, people are much more interested because it's like, oh, yeah, we know some about Krypton, but what makes his grandfather so special? But with his time travel twist, I think this show, it makes it more interesting.
And it definitely can. And that's the thing. I'm like, I'm not saying, oh God, this is going to be terrible. No, it has got me thinking that it's not just going to be about Kryptonian society. And that's where I want to know how much of what kind of variations is going to go in. Because I was all in on just a story about Kryptonian society just because I wanted to, that kind of stuff. I'm like, that'd be kind of cool, Downton Abbey, but in Krypton, I'd be okay with that and I'd watch that. But now we're going to get more of there's going to be an action adventure element to it. So it's how much of it's going to be, a representative of the society, how much is going to be this action, who is Seg, pretty cool name there for a guy. I'm digging it.
I don't know. I'm just busy tweeting right now. Jim Segulin says on most recent episode of Raging Bullets that Krypton will suck. I don't know. Pretty harsh.
No, appreciate it.
I'm honestly, it's finally some news on that show that has me, not that I wasn't interested before. The general concept, of ancient Krypton had me interested, but now that they fleshed it out a bit, they've got some hooks in there that have me executed properly. To Jim's point, this show could be really fun.
Okay, we want to move to the next piece. We got some Supergirl casting news. This is for the upcoming season. We have Adrian Pastor as Morgan Edge, Carl Lumbly as Martian Manhunter's father, Mirren Johns. I hope I'm saying that right. And then I'm going to take a cue from you guys, and sorry for the name butchery here. Yale Grobglis as the villain Psy.
That show has been one that I don't want to say surprised. Well, yeah, I guess I will say surprised me. I really love Supergirl. I think it's been a great show. So casting news of that and the fact that they're continuing to move that lore forward has me really excited. I'm excited to see where new episodes of Supergirl goes. I'm really glad that's a show that's continued. I was worried about that show when they moved networks for it, and I'm really glad now that it's just continuing on and they're adding more to it for this season. So yay, more Supergirl.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys see the trailers and the videos released for next season already?
I did.
I did too.
Okay, yeah, because that was something that that I pulled up and I was watching for all the different shows, and that was something I was kind of like, gonna be kind of interesting on Supergirl. Just the little teasers they're giving us because of the way last season ended. We're gonna get less. I don't want to say less human, but we're gonna see her more. It seems like we're going to see her more focusing on the Supergirl side of her life and less of the Kara Danvers. And I think that's going to be kind of an interesting play because she was always the golly gee Willikers kind of, very positive and friendly and bubbly kind of personality. And I'm not knocking her personality that she did on the show. She had those serious moments, and that was kind of the coolness of Supergirl, that she could go from that very friendly, pleasant, wonderful person to be around to being a butt kicker. So that's, but I think we're going to get more of a darker, and not darker as an evil, but darker as in more standoffish from people. She's not going to be, her heart's been broken, and she's not going to let people in. And I think that's going to be an interesting play that we're going to get, especially, depending on how these, how Morgan Edge, who we know, in the comics isn't the most pleasant of person to deal with. And I'm not sure anything about John's father. So these are kind of, I'm like, how is this going to add into the Supergirl? Who's she going to be?
Yeah, it's good. This is just not even Supergirl, but kind of as we talk about the rest of the shows, people talk about how great like the movies have been for for comic books and really showing the mass audience, but I contend that the TV shows have just done as much work because there's a plethora of great comic TV shows out there for like really any type you really want.
Arrow?
Yep. Arrow, Richard Dragon is going to be the villain for season 6. There will also be 2 episodes in which the flashbacks will concentrate on Deathstroke.
I'm a huge fan of Manu Bennett, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, as Deathstroke. I think that he's been a great character on that. I didn't see him being a character that came back not only last season, but to be a character featured on next season. So I'm excited for more of that. I'm glad that Arrow is continuing. I think what's made that show work from the beginning has been its willingness to have a Team Arrow concept, whether it's present or in the past or however they're telling their stories. It's always been about Oliver's interaction with others and allowing those others the ability to breathe and to become their interesting and unique characters. Being the linchpin show, the one that kind of kicked all of this off this time around, I'm glad to see that show continuing to expand upon what's made it work, and again, adding to its mythos. To me, Richard Dragon, perfect fit for Arrow. Season 6, having Deathstroke's interaction with that whole piece is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to see where this season goes.
Oh, God, yeah. I tell you, man. One, Deathstroke is just a great character, and that actor, I absolutely love that actor. For me, he was a perfect casting of this, and I've loved how Deathstroke has evolved throughout this show, where initially in the flashback, you've seen that positive, that relationship between the two of them. You see the break, and now you're starting to see that return back to that the camaraderie and the friendship between Ollie and Deathstroke. And I like that, again, Deathstroke's that character that he's got that nature to him, that he can walk in the light, he can walk in the dark, and he can walk that line. where it's the code, where it's, yes, he is a killer, but will he kill for the right reasons? Is there right reasons to kill? Will he, and there's so many different things you can do with that guy that I'm very happy with how they've been playing him. And this is one of those where I'm really excited for I want to see the season premiere right now, just because there's going to be a body count and I want to know who, especially how last season ended. I'm like, I want to know who lives. I want to know who dies. That was a great season ending where I'm sitting there going, no, but I'm like, oh God, season 6 is going to be awesome.
What about The Flash?
The Flash, I would never thought I would be saying these words, but Danny Trejo is going to play Gypsy's father on The Flash. Also, it's been the Mechanic, who I believe is a new villain, because the Thinker is going to be the villain for the main villain for the next season of Flash, but the Mechanic will be on the show too as a female villain.
I can't wait to see what, because obviously we've got the issues with Barry, where Barry was put last season. This season has me really, really excited for where it's going to go. They've done some things blatantly that are right from the comics, right on the screen on this show, and they delivered in a way that I thought was really interesting. Barry's got to come back, so what brings Barry back? What does Barry's coming back mean? And what has happened in Barry's absence? And how much time will have passed are just questions that I have. I obviously love the relationship between Barry and Iris. This is going to be something where when he comes back, that relationship, no matter what, has been impacted by this choice. Iris will have had to have some time passed. And what does that mean for him and Iris? I don't know. Will she be the beacon for him that we saw in the past with Wally and his wife, Linda? Going to be curious to see what this looks like and where they take Barry and Iris. I want to see the two of them wind up together. I really do. It's going to be interesting to see how this show goes.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get a lot of Wally this season. I really would love to see multiple episodes of Wally as the Flash, and Wally basically stepping up and continuing on, the legacy that is the Flash, because the city always has to have a Flash. So, he's one of the characters I'm curious about. This Danny Trejo announcement has me going, that's gonna be fun. Because he's a guy that I think is absolutely hysterical when they put him in the right roles, and he can do obviously scary, intimidating kind of guy, but he can also do very funny. He's got a good range, and he, especially given that Cisco is dating his daughter, I want to see him interacting with Cisco just because he's going to be scary and intimidating, and that'll be some fun moments.
Yeah. The next bit of news deals with Black Lightning. James Remar has been cast as Peter Gamby in Black Lightning. He is going to play Pierce's father figure, mentor, and tailor. And then you have Damon Gupton is Inspector Henderson, a veteran officer of the law who is now the highest-ranking detective on the force.
I'm excited for that show. I need a little bit more. I want to see more of the premise of it and what it looks like. But I'm glad they're putting it out. I think Black Lightning's a great character and one that I think he's a unique character that will add. So is he supposed to be part of the DC EU then? Or do we not know that? No,
it's going to be its own separate universe.
Okay.
Kind of like how Supergirl, it's technically on a different Earth. Black Lightning is going to be on its own Earth as well.
Is it the same creators?
I believe so.
So maybe we'll see a crossover at some point where he comes through. Who knows?
Yeah. If we can get Supergirl to crossover a couple of times, then. But this one is Gotham news. Scarecrow will be the villain for the new season.
Sweet.
Yeah. I mean, there really wasn't a lot of announcements that came out of Gotham, so just really the new villain. And then finally, for the TV news, for the show Lucifer, Tom Welling, a.k.a. Smallville Superman, has been cast as a cop in Season 3. He will play an accomplished police lieutenant, Marcus Pierce, who is described as being strategic, reserved, and well-respected, and is a possible love interest for Decker.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm actually really excited about this because I am a huge fan of the Lucifer TV show.
I am too. That's been one of the better ones that they've spun out. And when we lost Constantine, we lost the Hellblazer show. This was one where it was like, wow, man, they got a Vertigo show. They're hitting it right and seem to be doing it right for TV and made the character really compelling. So I'm glad to see this show continuing on. And it's also good.
It's nice to see that they're continuing to bring back their former actors.
Agreed.
Yeah, and Lucifer is one of those shows that I kind of stockpiled just because of everything going on. I couldn't really watch. So I had a lot of binge watching I did on Lucifer. And that was a show that really, it lent itself really well to that style of multiple episodes in a sitting. And, you know, I'm by the end of last season, I was like, okay, I'm all in on Lucifer again. It was weird because at the end of season 1, I was like, oh, that's pretty good. Yeah. But I wasn't like excited. You know, so that's why part of the reason why season 2 did end up getting stockpiled, because I was like, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't thrilled. But when I watched all 2 pretty much, you know, within a span of a couple weeks, you know, I was like, you know what? This is a well put together show. I want to see what they do in season 3. And then hearing Tom's involved, I'm like, all right, cool. And because like you, I was like, you know, I'm glad they're pulling in other people, and, you know, glad to see he's working, and curious to see how it is watching him play this role on this show.
Yeah. But that is it for the TV news. So time for the movie news, which there's some really good news coming from that realm. In the first part comes from the Hollywood Reporter, and as been confirmed by the actual director, but Shazam is going to start production in 2018 for a possible 2019 release date, and David Sandberg has been confirmed as directing the movie.
Cool. Yeah, that's one that I think, you know, we've been hearing for years about The Rock playing Black Adam. So I'm glad to see that we're going forward with a Shazam movie. I want to see that on big screen. Like, I mean, really, you talk about a guy who was like born to be Black Adam. Great. I want to see who they do for Billy and Shazam, and what route they go with this, because I think the character has such a rich history. I think what they've been trying to find with that character, and it's been the conundrum that they've run into, is the right hook to modernize that character while keeping what's made the character so cool throughout its history. He's been an interesting character to try and find the right balance of, and I hope they finally get that right.
Yeah.
Now I read a rumor, and I don't remember where I read it, but I heard that the Rock was out now, and he wasn't going to be Black Adam.
Well, he's not going to be Black Adam in the Shazam movie, but I think he's still attached to the Black Adam movie.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the articles that they put out about that weren't exactly the clearest.
Oh, okay.
But here, I want to stress that this next one is a rumor. There has not been any confirmation about it. But there's a possibility of a Harley Quinn versus Joker movie in development.
This makes a lot of sense. Only because there was so much scenes with the two of them that were cut that I would hope to see more of Jared Leto's Joker somewhere. So I don't know, the two of them, that sounds like a wacky. I'm their opening night. So if they do that, even if they just take the cut footage and put it out of the theater, I would go into the theater and see that. So that to me sounds like a winner. I wonder if the cut footage is leading to that rumor, or if there's something more of substance to it. I hope it's something more of substance, because I really would like to see that movie.
Yeah.
I want to step back really quick, and then we can go forward. I thought The Rock was supposed to be Black Adam in Justice League.
I don't think that. I think that was just a rumor that was never confirmed.
Got it.
Because as we know, like, Rock's definitely not in Justice League, but so.
But it was a two-parter, so I guess I wondered if it would be. But yeah. I hope. Where did that get teased at? I wonder if that was just him encountering Henry Cavill or something like that put that on.
Well, I think whenever people were speculating what the Shazam movie could be, like, it could be Shazam and Superman teaming up to fight Black Adam or something like that.
Got it.
I think that was one of the possibilities. The next bit of news comes from the animated realm again. We have our next 4 animated movies that we're going to get. We're getting Gotham by Gaslight. We're getting Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. We're getting Death of Superman, and then finally Reign of Superman, which is going to be more comic book accurate than the Superman Doomsday animated movie that we got.
Cool. I'm up for all those. Gotham by Gaslight I knew because that was the preview in the last movie that was released. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited about that. That whole lineup is really great for me. I'm glad they're continuing these animated features. I've been grabbing every one of them as they come out, and they're really high quality, and they seem to be just picking the right stories to put into animation. I hope they continue to be successful because it's kind of fleshing out. I like that we're getting these great TV shows. I like that got live action films out there, and these animated films. I like that they're not trying to fit them into those universes. They're just letting them be their own thing.
Yeah, and now I want to say that the Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. I think it's going to be. I forget exactly, but I'm not sure if it's going to be a direct sequel to the previous Suicide Squad movie, that animated one that came out. I think it might be its own thing, but either way, it should be good.
Yeah, I'm fine either way on that one.
Yeah. I think that's a no lose situation on all of these. To be honest, I'm looking, going, okay, cool. Yep, all right, good. Let's rock and roll.
Yep. And then staying with the animated stuff, the Ray animated show got talked about a little bit, and it's going to take place on Earth 10, and so basically Nazi Earth, and it's going to have the version of the Freedom Fighters against a version of the New Reichsmen, which is going to consist of Arrow, Flash, and Supergirl. So they're going to be the enemies, and they're going to be voiced by their respective actors.
Oh,
so
cool.
Like Melissa Benoist as Supergirl, Stephen Amell as Arrow.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. I like that they're it's kind of tagged on and attached to that universe. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad when we get the TV actors doing stuff like this, because what's his name who played Constantine did it, and the Justice League Dark, and I it's always you see these actors who get into these characters and get into these roles, and they make them part. They're part of who they are, and it's as the geeky fan, I like that. I like thinking that to them it's not just a paycheck. Because to us, it's not just some TV show. There's significance. We're like, this is awesome. So seeing, these actors get into the roles and, and actually look for other mediums is kind of I'm happy with.
Yeah. This is next big news seems to quell a lot of worry among people. Especially since before the pan, there's a lot of rumors that, Ben Affleck wants to be out as Batman, or Warner Brothers is looking for a graceful way for him to leave. But during the Warner Brothers panel, the DC panel, Ben Affleck seemingly reaffirms his commitment to being Batman amongst all the rumors of him leaving. He even went far to say that if Matt Reeves wanted, he would play a background ape in one of the Planet of the Apes movies, because he thinks he's that good.
Sweet.
So that put a lot of people's tensions at ease.
Yeah, I don't want to do Batman yet. I want to. I feel like one of the problems with Batman v Superman, and I use the term problem loosely. I think Ben Affleck's Batman, we haven't really had a chance to really get to know him yet. I think so, when you've got like that shift in focus, and I'm excited for Justice League to see more of him. I'm excited for the Batman movie. I know that it's kind of going through a development nightmare right now, but sometimes a development nightmare can be to make a movie better. And my fingers are crossed that's what's going to happen in this case, that they're just trying to get it right. So I'm going to be optimistic and hope that that's the case. But I'd like to see Ben Affleck have a solo Batman film.
Yeah. And during the panel, and I have a picture here in the notes where we get a 3D long-form picture of the different characters that are going to be part of the DC universe. I think this is just a more clear focus of the new opening that we saw in front of Wonder Woman.
That's cool.
So we got characters like Deathstroke, Darkseid, Midnighter is in there, Shazam, Guy Gardner, Batgirl, Arrow, I see Poison Ivy, the Spectre, Swamp Thing, Firestorm, Martian Manhunter, Etrigan, all kinds. There's a lot of characters there. Yeah, there's some Hawks. I see Gorilla Grodd. So yeah, it looks like it's both encompassing the movies and TV shows.
Cool.
And so we get that. They just announced the movies. There's no dates attached to them, but these are the movies that are going to be coming out sooner rather than later. But again, we're getting Justice League, as we know, coming out in November.
Cool.
The Flash movie is going to be Flashpoint. You're going to get Suicide Squad 2, The Batman, Aquaman, Justice League Dark, Green Lantern Corps, Batgirl, and Shazam. And Wonder Woman 2 was kind of not officially announced, but it's happening. And actually, that the script is currently being worked on.
The first Wonder Woman was so good it'd be a no-brainer to do a sequel.
Now, are these live-action movies, or are these live-action and animated combined?
All these movies are the live-action part of the DCU slate.
Because I'm excited for Green Lantern Corps. I was like, what? I did not know they're gonna give it another shot. That for me.
That one's been in the rumor mill for a while. The rumor is, I think, that Hal's going to be the older Lantern and training John Stewart. If it's still heading down that path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's also going to be interesting because going back to that 3D model or the picture, it has like Guy Gardner in there and Jessica Cruz, and I think Simon's in there. So I wonder if we're going to get all of them, or like in like Green Lantern Corps 2, get some of them. Looks like we're going to get a really big helping dose of the Corps, which makes me excited.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, that part's great. Justice League Dark looking like it's finally going to become a thing. Has me super excited as well. The Flash doing Flashpoint. I wonder what that's going to look like on the big screen. It's an interesting story to start with, considering we haven't had a chance to really get to know this Barry yet.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
If that gives us Jeffrey Dean Morgan as a Batman, I think that'll just be great.
I'm all in for that. Wasn't that a rumor? That is a rumor, isn't it?
Or again, nothing official with that, but he did, after the Flashpoint movie was announced, he actually went on Twitter and kind of was prodding fans about maybe.
I'd love him to be Thomas Wayne.
He could pull it off. Come on. You know?
Wait, he looks like that role was made for him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's already playing, like, you just maybe tone down Negan from Walking Dead, and there you go. But we also got, it has not been released, unfortunately, but we got a short scene from Aquaman. And it basically what it was is it opens up on a shot of two guys fishing on a boat, and one of the lines gets snagged, and the boat gets pulled, and it goes underwater, and we see this entire, basically, army. And then it cuts from that to a close-up of Jason Momoa, and he goes, "Are you sure you just don't want to talk about it?" And then he goes, "Yeah, me neither." And then he goes to fight. So that's how the scene was described, and apparently everybody was really impressed with it.
Cool.
Every clips I've seen of Aquaman, I'm impressed with him. I really like him as Arthur. He's dramatically different than from what you physically see in the comic, but again, he's an actor that I think can pull off the Warrior King.
We also got a couple of new Justice League posters in the vein of Alex Ross, which looked really cool. And then finally, we got the Justice League trailer itself.
That was sweet. The new one?
Yeah.
Really, really sweet.
I was a little surprised how long it was, but I still felt it didn't reveal anything.
The end was great,
trailer.
though. The end, leaving people to speculate over what that ending means, was really, really sweet.
Yeah, you have that. You have Boom Tube. You got Steppenwolf. Yeah, it was a really great trailer.
There was something I saw on Twitter today that they're doing some, reshooting some scenes for Justice League, and Henry Cavill is already working on Mission Impossible, so they had to. He's got a mustache and stuff now, and beard and stuff going on because of that film. So they have to digitally remove that stuff in order for the scene, which is interesting nowadays with today's technology. They're able to do that. But I don't know. I want Justice League to be good so bad. I'm rooting for them. Yeah. I want this to be the film that I want this to be our Avengers, and I say that totally as complimentary to Marvel's Avengers films that I think are phenomenal. So I really want this to be our Avengers. I want this to be the film that people are talking about without it looking like they're redoing the Avengers. You know what I mean? I want it to feel very DC, like Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman feels very DC. It's embraces its core concepts and just delivers it really well. Justice League can build off of that and needs to. It needs to really be the film that feels like it's spinning right off of the momentum of Wonder Woman.
Yeah. I like that with how good Wonder Woman was. The trailer right off the bat focuses on Wonder Woman.
Yep. That was a smart move to start spotlighting her, and its use of Batman is really good as well.
Yeah, but that's actually it for all the comic and TV show and movie news from Comic-Con.
Yeah, I honestly, I was going to say on paper it feels lighter. Of course it does, but it sometimes, because of the fact that we've had more panels spinning out of the comics, we've had a lot of updates on current titles and things like that, which we didn't have this year. I don't know that I'm necessarily disappointed in that. The news that we got, I'm really excited about. I'm just very curious to see how this year spins out for the comic world, the television, and the film world. I just want this to be, as a fan, a geeky fan, I want this to be a DC's year. I just want to feel like, by the time we hit year end, this has been, just a banner year for DC. Next time we talk about San Diego Comic-Con, I want to, be able to talk about just how excited what happened this year made me for the potential that a lot of this is setting up. So it's good stuff for me.
Yeah, I felt, and maybe we want to get into this, like Comic-Con as a whole, I felt it was a good con, but I do think that DC might have missed one or two announcements that maybe they could have went in depth even more, but they did enough to really excite me for the upcoming year.
I think that's a trick nowadays. It's how do you balance out what you reveal when they've got a lot going on in the universe that we already know and a lot that we're not sure of yet. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this year plays out, because I think in comics in particular, there's a lot of mystery going on. Because I think that Doomsday Clock in particular, yeah, we know it's been Dr. Manhattan messing around with things, no big shock there. But to what extent and what does that mean? And what happens? They know something's happened. What happens when they figure it out? There was a shot in that panel of Who Watches the Watchmen, and they took a current Justice League shot and showed them, which I thought was pretty kick butt. I want to see how this plays out. I want to see Dr. Manhattan, Ozymandias, and what that reckoning is going to look like.
No.
Well, Jeremy, I want to thank you. You first of all, for putting all this together, because it's a lot of work. Obviously, we're doing it already for the Facebook group community, but you had to, tidy it up, get it ready for this episode, and also just give us your time here. And I really appreciated that because I felt like this discussion benefited from having the additional voice and a chance to kind of really talk through some of these pieces. And it's going to be curious. I was going to say a year from now, not really a year from now. What does New York Comic Con bring spinning out of this? Because I think there's only more news that's going to be happening down the road. So we're going to have to, I think, touch base again as we hit New York Comic Con to take a look and see where DC's continuing to go. Because I wonder if they do what. I'm a big video gamer, and video game companies will save certain news for each con to give people like a little bit more of a taste. I can't imagine that, to some of your point, Jeremy, there aren't news tidbits that aren't maybe being deliberately saved that I think we're going to see play out.
Yeah. I want to thank you guys for having me on to let me discuss this with you.
No, definitely. Let's honestly, if you would be up for it, why don't you plan to join us again for New York Comic Con when we do that piece, and we can follow up again and chat the news and see where things are going.
Oh yeah.
I do want to thank you though. Very early on when we did the Facebook group community, I realized real quick that if I was left to be moderator, that we'd have a whole queue of people sitting there. And you were already an active participant, and I quickly just realized, oh, this is a really good guy and somebody I can trust with that piece. And what ended up happening is what you said. Once you start letting people in, it just became this great community. And I think when you have a foundation community of people such as the early adopters, such as yourself, and all the people that started coming into the Facebook group in the beginning, they set a tone for what that community is. And it really is, like I said, I was excited to see myself tagged in the post with that Hawkman news. I liked finding out that way instead of seeing it on the site. It was great to share that with the community. And it's a community that I feel I'm proud to be a part of because of the quality of the people there. And I want to thank you because I would have never expected it to become what it is. And that only way things like this happen is by just the quality of the people that end up being in there. And I want to thank you for being such a figurehead of that community. I want to thank all the people in the community that are there. Please know that by the fact that I'm not rushing out a bunch of names, there are so many people there that I know by name that my fear is I start naming people. Every person I name, there's going to be 3 people that I should have mentioned that should be a part of that. So when I say the community in general, I really mean you as a collective group. It's just a great spot to be. And whether you're a person that pops by every day or pops by casually, it doesn't matter. I'm just proud to be associated with it. And thank you, Jeremy, for coming on for this one. And we'll be glad to have you back for New York Comic Con because we got a couple months away and we're going to be talking about the crazy news that are coming out of that one, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, and I can't wait for that. And I do want to mention that for listeners who aren't on the forum that are not sure whether they want to or not, I would suggest, hey, just come by, see what you think. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But with us there, the more the merrier.
One thing I do want to remind people, too, one of the things that I've found, I'm a member of a few Facebook group communities. I think one of the criticisms that I've heard from people is how intrusive the Facebook group communities can be in your email. You have full control of controlling notifications to whatever level you want them. You can control notifications down to specific threads to never having any notifications. You can just pop in whenever you feel like and join in the conversation that way. So just know that feel free to not feel free, you should. I encourage you, check out the settings. Don't let that keep you away from joining a great group community because you have a lot of power. Facebook has certain defaults that just start sending you messages right away. You can shut all those things down to your preference. You can get things in digests. You can only get certain threads sent to you. Whatever your preference is of communication is the way that you can control it. So don't let that shy you away from joining this great group of people. It's something that I think is great about the community. And we look forward to, all of us look forward to seeing new faces there all the time. So Thank you for everyone who's already joined, and for some of you potential people who are going to be joining up.
And again, thank you guys for doing this podcast, because without you guys, there wouldn't be this group.
Well, it's honestly, we're lucky. When you do a show like this and you're lucky enough to have a listening audience that finds some value in the amount of time they give for us, it's greatly appreciated. So we're proud to be a part of this community. And so, Jeremy, thanks again, and we will see you around the time for New York Comic Con.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I look forward to that.
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
I want to remind everyone about the show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We'll have voicemails back on the next episode, but please, we always air any voicemails we receive. We love having you part of the show, so please call into the podcast. I want to remind everybody about RagingBullets.com. Whenever our episodes are released, news comes out right on RagingBullets.com. It blasts out to Twitter. It also blasts out to our Facebook fan page. Besides that, as Jeremy mentioned this episode, we have a Facebook group community that we are proud to be connected with. And it's a wonderful community of people. Make sure to check it out and join up to the Facebook group community. We also are on Google+. Jim and I are both on the PlayStation Network now. I'm Raging_Bullets. Jim is Sensei_Whatnot. So be sure to check us out over there. And we love connecting with all of you, so feel free to add us. I want to remind everyone that we are sponsored once again by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. DCBService.com is, of course, your comic book pre-order source. It's not just comic books. It's really anything that's available in the previous catalog you can get from DCBService.com. Cameron and the whole crew over there have been supporters of our show for years now, and we really appreciate them. So whether you like comics, trades, hardcovers, absolute editions, statues, you name it, you can grab it all from DCBService.com. Link your account if you're a Comixology or My Digital Comics buyer, and make sure to shop through their portal to earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order. I want to remind everyone that InStockTrades.com is your place to pick up any of the trades or collected editions that you've missed. It's great because they always have deals of the week. They're up to 50% off. They also let you know any of the new releases that are coming out right over at InStockTrades.com. They give you a great list, too, of top 10 releases right now, which I always like to check out to see what people are buying. A lot of times I'll catch something that I missed. We're a DC podcast, so a lot of times, when I want to find out what's out there from other companies, InStockTrades.com is a great way for me to browse. And it's like going back to the old spinner racks, and I like to browse through and maybe see some books that I didn't know. It's a great way to do creator searches, artist searches, writer searches, anybody really who's worked on a book that you're interested in, and you can pull up a menu of items that they've had. I found that a lot of times there's people that I discover when they come over to DC, and I didn't realize that they had written a highly successful independent title or something like that, and I'll go back and read it and pick it up. Jeff Lemire was a great example of that. Essex County I ended up picking up through InStockTrades.com, and it was something that wasn't on my radar before Sweet Tooth. I mentioned Sweet Tooth on this episode. So it was great to check out some of his work outside of DC from InStockTrades.com. So I want to thank both DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for supporting our show, but also they provide amazing discounts. So it's a sponsor that Jim and I both use that we're proud to shout out on the show. Our next episode, Jim and I are going to be jumping back to comic books. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to start recording 2 episodes back to back. We're going to try doing that on very specific topics. And it's not always going to stay in that format. We're going to shift around from time to time. But there's some characters we've been wanting to spotlight. And the next 2 are going to be Batwoman and Wonder Woman. So we're going to do a Batwoman spotlight episode and a Wonder Woman spotlight episode. We're going to talk about recent story arcs from both. Talk pretty in depth about what's going on with those characters. And I'm looking forward to starting to record those episodes. So that'll be episodes 502, 503. So we will see everyone then.
Bye.
Strategery. What is that supposed to mean? That's a word that I have never seen. Do you exist? Strategery. Suddenly, I don't feel as smart as I used to be. I couldn't find it in a dictionary. Oh, what the heck is strategery? Why, I just my way. I asked a friend I know, and they told me go away. Strategery. Maybe it's something that is wrong with me. I may need a pill from the pharmacy. Maybe that will cure my strategery. Why I need to know, I don't know. It's just my way. Just because I don't know, I'll just say it anyway. Strategery. A definition isn't meant to be, or at least one that I can see. I'm so confused. Strategery.